Welcome to another edition of AV Rant. I'm Tom Andrew, Associate Editor of Audioholics, and I am here with...
Rob H. This is AV Rant, the show where we answer your questions about all things home theater and audio video. And Andrew, we're home.
What?
Star Wars trailer.
Oh,
Chewie, we're home. Only your last name has 2 syllables. I guess I could have called you Thomas, but
Yeah, I saw that. That was all right. That looked okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I was excited about it. I don't know, stroking the geek nerdgasm, I think, is a little doesn't need to really be done. And the fact that it said Star Wars on it, I think was enough. Did we talk about Ant-Man last week? We already talked about Ant-Man last week.
I can't even remember. We might have mentioned
Ant-Man
it.
looks really good. I'm really a little bit worried that they had such directorial problems,
I
especially with
know.
Edgar Wright leaving.
Yeah.
But then again, I didn't have a lot of high hopes for Guardians of the Galaxy. It was easily my favorite movie. So,
Oh.
yeah.
Yeah, this was like the week of big movie trailers, and in our little neck of the woods on AV Rant, it's the week of like broken products and lots of activity on Facebook. That was the theme this week.
So, and then there was the other trailer for what's it called? Batman Superman
versus Superman. Yes.
Crapdom. Yeah, I could not have. I don't think they could have made a trailer that would have made me less interested in that movie. I was just like,
I didn't mind it.
I think I thought Ben Affleck looked fine. He was very grim and dark, and the costume looks really good. From it just sitting there, him standing out of the car, he looked very imposing when he got out of the car.
He's got his Dark Knight Returns armor,
yeah, which looks a little Lego-y now.
It does look a little Lego-y. You're right. I didn't even think of that.
It was really cool. It looks a lot like the comic book has it. I own the comic books, the originals, and it looks a lot like that. But back then there wasn't Lego Batman, and now there is, and it sort of looks like Lego Batman now. It's a little disturbing, but it just did not. The whole Superman is. I just the thing that really got me was we're gonna end up having this fight, and at the end, they're gonna decide that there needs to be a Justice League, and they're gonna start working together, which is not a payoff that I want to spend 2.5 hours getting towards, and that's what doesn't interest me. The fact is, I don't think there's gonna be a real villain in here. The villain's gonna be humans are awful, or
there's Lex Luthor. He's in the movie.
What's that?
There's Lex Luthor. He's in the movie, so
whatever. It's not going to be, it's going to be more about their clash, which I don't mind seeing, but it's just, I don't know, man. It's just going to be 2.5 hours of us working towards, hey, let's hug it out, and I'm going to be like,
what if they pull a surprise and they have the Batman versus Superman fight like right at the beginning, like before the credits even roll? What if they're just
not going to do that?
Troll everybody.
Well, are they going to get Green Arrow in there? Because Green Arrow was too, right? Yeah. But he only had one arm in the book. But everybody was older. He was like supposed to be 60. He's supposed to come out of retirement. So it was a completely different sort of setup. Obviously,
we've definitely had the tale of movie trailers this year that have fallen into one of the two camps, right? Because Star Wars, everybody's hyped on it. Ant-Man, the newest one, everybody's like, oh, that looks better than it. I thought the new Fantastic Four trailer, everyone's like, oh, maybe it's not going to be like the worst thing ever. But then there's like Jurassic World, where not a single trailer has made that movie look like good at all.
I saw something where he's standing in front of 3 of them with his hands out or whatever. Yes, I was like...
But every line of dialogue has been horrible.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. That doesn't surprise me.
Dear. All right. Well, this is not the movie trailer show. What's happening in the world of AV?
This is AV Rant, where we answer your AV and home theater questions. Now I'm trying to figure out why I can't hear Rob. I mean, I can hear him just barely.
Oh,
and
okay.
The sound all the way up.
Huh. I'm showing up just fine on my side as far as
I'm not saying it's you. I'm saying that it is not
your audio device, maybe
something is askew, and I would like to fix it. All right,
that would be good.
So get your AV and home theater questions answered. All you have to do is ask. You can ask by sending us an email to rob@avrant.com, tom@avrant.com. come to the website, which of course is www.avrant.com. You can go to facebook.com/avrant podcast, where apparently you and everybody else that listens to this podcast is commenting right now. It has been kind of exploding over there. I've noticed that. I've popped in here and there. Rob usually sort of manages that.
Do I now? Not so much.
Yeah, wow.
Lately.
Well, we both get in and out there. Rob is at First Reflect, and I'm at avrant_Tom. Yes, I'm stuck with the underscore. This week we're going to thank a couple listeners of the week. We've got Thomas, and the way Thomas became listener of the week was that after we told him not to buy anything, he went ahead and bought a bunch of stuff. And then he told them at first he said he told SVS that he bought their subs even though we told him not to. But no, in fact, he did tell them that he had bought them because we had suggested it. And he actually says that his Pioneer Andrew Jones sub might have sounded actually a little bit louder, but his new SB 2000 sealed box 2000 sounds so much nicer. I don't know why that would have sounded louder other than distortion.
Well, he was mentioning before that anytime he had his older sub powered on, his neighbors were complaining because they're like, yeah, we're hearing that through the walls. I highly suspect that one was because he didn't have a decoupling riser, a damping riser, or anything like that beneath it. I highly suspect that one being a much physically lighter weight sub with little feeties on its bottom, that it was doing a lot more physical vibration, which would have been resonating throughout his room previously and obviously bothering his neighbors. The new one sounding cleaner, tighter, not bothering his neighbors as much. So right there is showing you once again how much the room physically vibrating contributes to the sound. We do tend to perceive higher distortion as being louder. So I think that was what was going on there as to why.
Which is why when you get your new SVS subs, you go, these actually sound quieter than my other ones. And you're like, yeah, it's because they're not farting around and rattling everything and, bouncing up and down on the ground and doing all that kind of nonsense.
I do still hope that Thomas did maybe get like the SoundPath isolation feat that SVS sells or some kind of grammar riser or something. I'm hoping he still did because he had that problem with his neighbors before, and that is one way to at least reduce that. Not necessarily completely solve.
I know that SVS has started shipping those feet with like their cylinders.
Yeah, the PC 2000, the ported cylinder 2000, it comes with the feet, but none of the other ones automatically come with the SoundPath feet. So
we'll see.
Yep.
All right, get back to us, dude. All right. One more announcement. I remember a long time ago we talked about this. This is, and you can see it if you're watching this on YouTube, streaming live, or if you're watching the YouTube trailer, YouTube later. This is from BenQ. It's called the Trivolo. It is a kind of a standalone speaker. One of those little things. I don't know if it's Bluetooth or what it is. I don't know. But it's got electrostatic panels.
Oh. All right.
So I was really curious about how that might sound, and let's see here. Integrated. This guy, would it say Bluetooth or something on it? Electrostatic Bluetooth speaker. So it's a Bluetooth speaker. So it looks like it's got folding electrostatic panels. It's 2.6 pounds, and it really feels heavier than that, to be honest with you. 12 hours of continuous play, so it's battery powered. Supports 16-bit digital audio via micro USB. It's got stereo line out support. 3 unique equalization profiles: pure with minimal equalization. I hope minimal means none. Warm, richer sound with more bass, and vivid emphasis on lead vocals and instruments. Guess which two I won't be using. You can stream music via Bluetooth, and I guess you can connect directly. So it's heavy as heck, man. But it's not that big. And it looks really quite interesting. So I'm excited. I just got it.
Who's that from again?
What's that?
What brand is that from again?
BenQ.
BenQ. Interesting. I had no idea BenQ made electrostatic speakers of any kind.
We are both in the same boat. That's what I'm thinking they don't. I'm thinking that somebody else made it and they went, we'll buy that one. How does that sound?
Could be.
All right. So last week we had a really long podcast. I'm going for something less than 2 hours and 15 minutes.
That was about what it was. Yep.
So we're going for less than that this week. That means we probably won't get through all your questions, but that's okay.
We'll do our darndest.
Yes, we will. And if you did not get your question answered, you're more than welcome to remind us, and we will answer it. The last thing I will mention that even though we didn't have any donations this week, If you do want to support the podcast financially, you're welcome to do so by going to www.avrant.com and clicking on the buy us a cup of coffee and leaving us a PayPal donation. And that helps in every single possible way that you can imagine financially. Things like that would help.
Like you buying
Uh,
a new USB cord so that you won't have
yes,
this horrible
apparently I will be
audio
doing that.
problem.
I'll be honest with you. I'm ready for this whole hot mess to be just switched out with something else.
Yeah.
It's too much. I want something not like this. And I want one of those light things so I don't always look like some sort of freak. Though I think the lights, like having more light on me, isn't going to do anything for. Like I need to be the dark. I am
You
not an attractive man, and I'm okay with that.
need high dynamic range so that the reflections off of any part of your
The
face don't
glistening of the
like.
sweat on my body as I sit in this room and slowly cook because I can't have the fan on or the AC on. Just I need that AC for this room. Yeah, that's not good. And usually at the end of the day, and it's not my anyways. No one's watching this for me, that's for sure. Now, let's start with Lior, who gave us a donation last week. Thank you, Lior. Lior got an SVS PB2000, and overall, he's very pleased with it. He has also been impressed with what Odyssey was able to do for his sound. If I remember correctly, isn't he in Israel? I think he's in Israel.
Yes.
Yes.
That is right.
So there you go. If you're wondering if SVS ships to Israel, apparently it does. He has one issue that is bothering him, which is a big, obvious null at 50 hertz. He made a test tone file that he put on YouTube that goes up 5 hertz at a time, starting at 20 hertz, and it's on screen. Like you'll watch it, it'll say now we're at 20, now we're at 25, now we're at 30, now we're at 35. And because something's going on with this thing, when I played it, I couldn't hear anything through the headphones. Which was really
it definitely plays. I tried it, and yep, there it is.
Yeah.
And I have no trouble hearing 20 hertz, so yay, that part of my hearing is still there.
Yeah. Unless that you're just hearing your speakers or your headphones distort, in which case you're just hearing the distortion.
I don't think it was. Doesn't sound
I don't
like
think you were either. I'm not saying. I'm just saying for other people. Like I have $5 headphones. I could totally hear it. Yeah.
Yeah, you hear a rattling. Yeah.
Are they going up and down and like hitting your ear at the same time? He measured using an SBL meter app on his Android smartphone. Okay. His room is 23.5 by 10.5 by 8. So pretty good size, but not too. It's a little thin, which I can empathize with. There's something of a partition towards the back of his room, but it does not fully block movement of air. So it's basically all one acoustic space as far as the bass is concerned. He tried moving his PB2000 to a different location, undisclosed. Maybe it was like a safe house someplace. But the null was still there at 50 hertz. So he sent us a bunch of pictures. There's a cute monkey thing or something on top of the sub, which I thought was nice. But that's the wrong one. We also have a floor plan.
Yes.
Now the room isn't closed. It looks like there's some sort of window or sliding glass door on one side, maybe two of them on if you're sitting on the couch on the right wall. So he's got his sub right up front, just almost in the left corner. His main right is actually in the left corner, but the sub is kind of a little bit in from that, flanking his probably entertainment center or whatever that is. And his seating position is, it looks like,
sort of centered in the room, really.
It's basically centered in the room. It's basically centered in the room. And there's this partition, this like half wall is about a third of the way in the room. Maybe a little bit less than a third of the way in the room from the back wall. So it's about 7 feet off the back wall. Off a 25-foot room, so you can do the math, figure out what that is. Yeah. So, what can he do? Well, obviously, he can get another sub, and that'll fix this whole problem. But I have a feeling he doesn't want to do that.
Well, that really is the solution here. Like Lior, he says he's been reading a whole bunch about acoustic treatments and bass traps, and it's left him a little bit confused. And he's sort of saying, okay, well, what does he do here? He's looked at like foam wedge bass traps that he could line all his corners with. He could put panels on the side walls, perhaps, or at least on stands or something like that. And he's like, is any of that really going to fix this problem? If so, how many panels would he need? Where would he need to put them? Or could he do this electronically? The mini DSP user Make You Wizard do it with.
Lior is not going to work.
No, I mean Odyssey would fix that if it were able to.
If it was this obvious, Odyssey would be able to would do something to it, and there would be a fix. So what's happening is as the bass is bouncing around your room, it's canceling out right where you're sitting, and here is where my first suggestion comes in, other than buying another sub, which will fix the problem. Almost guaranteed. I can't imagine a situation where it would not fix the problem. But you are sitting dead center in your room, just about,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah,
that is
and the dimensions of your room line up very much with like the 23.5 foot length lines up with about, what is it, about 53 hertz,
yeah,
I think, or maybe it's the other way around. But anyway, his width and his length both line up within like 6 hertz of 50. So the
yeah,
fact that he's hearing a dip at the 50, not at all surprising. And because he's sitting in the middle of the room there, so he's probably right in the null
yeah.
where all those
So
standing waves are happening.
the problem is that his surround speakers are, I think, by necessity, by this where this wall is and where this sliding glass door or window or whatever that is on
Mm-hmm.
that right wall, it's very far back from where he's sitting. It's probably what, 3, 4, 5 feet behind him, based on
The
where
uh
he's sitting.
the surrounds,
The
yeah,
sur-
they look, yeah, probably about 4 or 5 feet, yeah.
yeah. So I know, I don't know if you can do this, but at least test. Move that couch back, like
Mm,
way close to that partition there. Now, then you might end up with some slap echoes and some issues going in there. You might want to have to put something on that wall
yep.
to for absorption there. But at least you'll get yourself off that dead center of the room.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is where that is a part, at least a contributor to your problem. And if you move back, you might find yourself moving out of that null slightly.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that is so easy here is he can just do this without moving anything. He can just go and stand behind his couch and take a measurement there, or just listen to the sweep or to the test tone there.
Yeah.
All you have to do is get up and go stand there. And if that null is now gone, then you know, oh, okay, moving my seat will get me out of that horrible
Yeah,
null
but
that
once you
you're in
did that
right
too,
now.
you'd want to rerun Odyssey. So you'd
Oh yeah.
rerun Odyssey based on that new location
Hmm.
and all that, and then you'll see even more improvement, hopefully.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, one downside is that he's installed a nice front projection system, and I think he's pretty clearly planned out, this is the distance I want to be from the screen size
yeah.
I have to get the viewing angle that I want. Now, if we're telling you to move the seat back, the screen's going to be smaller than you might have
Well,
wanted
I
it to
will say that if
be.
you had asked us first, we would never have told you to put the seat in the middle of the room to begin with. So let's just start with that. We would have said, do not do what you have just done, which is and if this is where you are, and this is then you're not going to change the seating location. That's perfectly fine. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that you're a bad person, but your solution now is to call SVS and say, AV Rant says I have to buy another sub, so I'm
Yep.
buying another sub.
And since you got the PB 2000, like I was thinking that the ideal place to put it is diagonally opposite where he has it right now.
Yeah.
And I know back there, it looks like he has like a desk type thing in behind that partition or something like that. You might need to save on floor space. So the cylinder, the PC 2000, would completely fit that bill. It would take up as little floor space as possible. You could stand it up in your rear right corner. You basically not see it because you got that partition blocking your view of it anyway,
Yeah.
and off you go. That, I mean, the thing is, his question about looking into acoustic treatments to solve this, you can't. I mean, theoretically you could by getting a active bass trap, like one of those
Resonator.
a Helmholtz resonator that is tuned to 50 hertz,
Yeah.
but that thing has to be big, and it's gonna, you know what, it's gonna cost just as much as getting a second sub.
It really is. That's the scary part. Is it
And then
costs just as
it's
much.
only it's only addressing that one frequency, whereas having a second sub, which won't cost you any extra in dollar amount, will actually benefit all the frequencies, not just this one null. So I mean, that is the solution, because I mean, to use passive bass traps that would affect 50 hertz, man, they would have to be thick, like thicker than, I mean, you'd be
You would
taking up
deaden
the
your
entire
room to
width
the
of your
point
room.
where you would not want to be in it, just trying to hit that, just trying to
Yeah,
get that absorbed.
yeah.
Uh,
There's no, I mean,
and
foam.
again, you would be spending as much as another sub.
Yeah, I mean,
I
foam
mean, I don't know what the shipping is
acoustic
to Israel, though.
treatments.
So, I mean, maybe it's
True. Foam acoustic treatments you basically don't want to use anyway. They are not nearly as effective
no.
as ones that are made with some form of insulation. So you'd want to use the insulation style ones, like what Gick sells. You'd want to use that type of material, but to affect 50 hertz, it would have to be so thick. So yeah, your solution here, try moving your seat if you can. If you can't do that, you're going to end up spending just as much as you would on a second sub anyway. So just get a second sub.
Yeah.
That's,
Now, one thing that concerns me is if you look at all the speakers on this chart, he's got
mhm.
he's got the lefts and the rights switched. So
Hmm?
when you
Oh.
when you look at the when you look
Oh,
at
okay.
when you
Well,
look,
I think that's just a labeling thing.
that's what I'm saying. I'm sure it is. I'm
Yes.
just pointing out though, for his benefit, if it happens to be the case that he's actually thinks so when you're sitting on your couch and you're facing your speakers, the ones on your left side are the left ones, and the ones on your right side are your right ones. All right, so
Yes.
that way pans are going the direction they're supposed to be going. Just so that we're all on the same page here. I just think he just mislabeled them, which is
I
completely.
think so.
I can do the same. I mean, I would definitely do that. So I just want to point that out. But yeah, you got to bite on the sub, dude. Unfortunately, you have to, well, or fortunately. But active solutions like Mini DSP or Room EQ Wizard, you can't boost out a null. You
Nope.
just can't do it
You can make your sub play louder at 50 hertz. You can certainly do that, but it'll still just cancel itself out at that seating location
at that
where you
same
are
location.
in the
So
middle of
no
the
matter
room.
how much
So
power you put into it, all you're doing
yeah.
is making your sub work harder for absolutely no benefit where you can hear.
Yeah.
And the passive room treatments are either going to be expensive and weird, or expensive and make your room sound weird. And you might be sitting with so much insulation around you that, once you turn your projector on an hour late, 15 minutes later, you're like, oh my God, it's so hot in here. What have I
There you
done
go,
to
man.
deserve this? Well, at least 50 hertz isn't bothering me anymore. So no,
Second sub, diagonally opposite placement, and off you go.
yes, yes. All right, Joel responded to our discussion of his rather odd SPL readings. If you remember last week, we talked about he was using his app on his phone and he was getting all sorts of weird readings and all that. He said he's run the Odyssey setup on his Denon AVR X3000 several times. Okay, so he's
Okay.
rerun Odyssey. That
Yep.
was one of our suggestions. He's put on the base sweep and confirmed that he is not sitting in a null. He is, however, sitting in a peak. But
Mm.
his subwoofer is a Paradigm that came with their PBK, which is perfect base kit, and that took out the peak before Odyssey was run, which is a good thing to do.
Sure.
You don't want Odyssey to be fixing that stuff. If you can fix something that obvious with with PBK, it's just a parametric EQ, I'm sure, and that's really good at taking down peaks.
Oh, yeah.
He used was that
I said, oh, yes. Yeah.
I can barely hear
I'm
you.
sorry, man.
It's
Yeah.
not you. It's me. I swear. He uses a microphone stand for the setup, and his iPhone with the SPL app gets put in the exact same location. He has not changed his iPhone from when he was measuring with his previous Yamaha AV receiver. Is one of the other things we thought it might be. Multi EQ is on. Dynamic EQ is on. By dynamic volume is off. Okay. He's
Okay.
tried taking measurements using his iPhone and the SBL meter app at a friend's house, and the speaker output levels all read the same for all the speakers in the subwoofer. So he doesn't think the app is way off. Good verification there. He tried running the test tones from the DVR Blu-ray setup disc, and the
Oh, it should
subwoofer.
be DVE. That's Digital
Yeah,
Video Essentials.
yeah.
Sorry,
I was
typo
wondering. I
on my
thought
part.
DVR was like some
The R
maybe.
and the E are close to each other on the keyboard.
All
I'm
right,
sorry.
no excuses, Rob. 5 lashes for you.
I
And the
know.
subwoofer and speakers all measured the same SPL, 72. But when he went to verify this by using the internal test tones of his X3000, and the subwoofer's output measured at 65 dB, where all of his other speakers measured at 72. Given all of that, is there just something wrong with the internal test tone specifically for the subwoofer output? Yes. I'm going with yes on this one.
Yeah, I mean, he has gone through all the
He has.
troubleshooting that we recommended. I mean, when the test tone's off, I mean, the good news is what ultimately matters is playing content. Yes, so apparently, when you play content like a Blu-ray disc, the levels are correct. Odyssey did its job, and it's playing test tones off a Digital Video Essentials disc, and everything, including the subwoofer, measures at the same SPL. So it seems as though functionally you actually are okay in terms of whatever you're listening to content wise. It's coming through at the correct levels, but I have no idea why the internal test tone, you're just going into the setup menu,
Yeah.
going speaker by speaker in the speaker trim levels. It is automatically playing a test tone, which should read 75 dB on any accurate SPL meter. I have no idea why the subwoofer is measuring like 7 decibels quieter than all the others when every other indication is that it's playing at the same level. So maybe it is. Maybe
No,
I have to
yeah.
agree. Maybe
I
it's just time to call Denon.
As I was going to say, if it's really going to bother you, call Denon. The only other thing I can think of is there might be some sort of trim level someplace that's been adjusted. And I don't know why that would affect the test tone. It should not.
It really shouldn't. Yeah. I mean,
But
it should go the other way. It should affect content, but
yes,
not the test tone if
exactly.
it was
Exactly.
some outside setting.
So
So
if it's really going to bother you, Joel, I would definitely call Denon and explain to them everything that you've done. And when the first person has no idea what you're talking about, ask because they're gonna believe me. You are so far advanced of the normal customer service people at this point
Yeah.
that you might want to just go ahead and say, "Listen, you're just gonna want to expedite me up to somebody who knows what the hell they're talking about because this is a very specific, very weird problem, and I've done a lot of
Yeah.
troubleshooting, and I'm not going to start off with did I turn it off and turn it back on because we're way past that."
Yes, yeah, rather. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, there can be software or hardware glitches. Usually, this is like a firmware problem, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, stranger things have happened in this world than there being some kind of firmware glitch in a consumer electronics product. So you are not insane. You have certainly troubleshooted, I don't know what the
Shot.
correct shot. Yeah,
I'm going with shot.
troubleshot this thing. That's weird. You never hear that word. But anyway, you've definitely gone through your paces. So yeah, that's about all we can say at this
Yeah.
point. It's time to call Denon if it
Yeah,
bugs
I
you.
would too. And the fact it's so weird that Odyssey's still going right.
Yeah,
So that means that whatever little odd subroutine that they've got in there that does this specific thing is either using different test tones than Denon.
yeah,
I mean, than Odyssey, which is perfectly is reasonable because they do those chirps and all sorts of weird stuff.
yes, that's
So
right. Yeah, they're not playing pink noise; they're playing chirps.
yeah,
So those
so
would be a different, like, if even if it's like a file in the firmware, it is a different file because it's
right,
not the pink noise; it's
yeah.
chirps. So yeah, like I say, myself, I'm really only concerned with the end result, and it sounds as though your end result is fine. Your content is playing back at the correct levels. So
I would still
yeah,
call Joel, I would still call
right.
Denon and explain to them what's happened because could be that whatever is causing this will eventually somehow spill if there's some sort of short, some sort of weird spill of it's like infect the rest of the stuff. Then pretty soon like HDMI inputs don't work anymore. So while it's still new, give them a call and let
Yeah.
them know what's going on so that you at least have that on file
Yeah,
someplace.
because I remember he had asked before, in our own setups when we measure with our own SPL meters and we go through these test tones, is this happening to us? And the answer
Nope.
is no. It's happening. What's happening at your friend's house, which is everything is measuring the same.
Yeah.
So that's what it should be, and something is awry here.
Yes. It's not awry in that the way the content's being presented to you, which is
Right.
great, but it's still awry, and that would worry me, and I would call Denon. Now, if Denon said, "Sure, we'll send you another one, but first you have to send that one back and you have to pay shipping," I'd be like, I'm gonna roll the dice with this one. you know, you know, that's probably what I would do, but it's completely up to you. On a side note, Ray, our good friend who usually comes to our hangouts after our recording session. He sent us a link to the Dayton Audio IMM6. Of course, it's a little I, lowercase I,
Gotta
uppercase
be.
M, uppercase M6 calibrated measurement microphone for iOS and Android. It's a $16 mic that plugs into the headset jack and gives you a pass through so that you can still use headphones with it plugged in. And that's at Parts Express. So I
Yeah.
imagine it's cheap as chips because it's at Parts Express.
$16, man. Yeah, we did actually post that link a couple of weeks ago because he sent us that link right after the show 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
But I wanted to mention it on the show because I wasn't aware of it before he pointed it out, and I think a lot of people would have interest in it. So if you want to use an SPL meter app on your smartphone, it can be iOS or Android. I mean, this $16 mic, we're not asking hundreds of dollars here, and apparently it comes with its own little correction file for that mic, which is something Dayton does. I'm sure it's batch,
Yeah,
calibrated
I'm
and
gonna
not
say it's
individual.
not gonna
Like,
be like the same sort of stuff that Herb does over at
yeah,
Cross Spectrum Labs,
yeah,
where he calibrates your calibration file is for your microphone.
that's right.
But
Yeah.
it's probably batch. It just makes it a little bit better, and it's only $16, man.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, the point is, it's not the frequency limited microphone that's built into your phone, because that is, for sure, the microphone that's actually built into your phone is not full frequency from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. This one is, and it has a little correction file, and you can use their little app to work all of that together. So there you go. Cheap way to get an SPL meter.
There you go. All right, that was all the stuff from last week. Let's go for this week. We got an update from Alan G. Last week, Alan was looking for a way to measure the response of all of his speakers without using the 7-channel stereo listening mode, which screwed up the frequency response we found.
Yeah.
Rob found a tutorial on Mini DSP's website for setting up Room EQ Wizard to output 7.1 test tones that can be controlled for each speaker individually, but it does require an HDMI output, told you, on the computer. So
Yeah, it's the only way. You have to send this out as 7.1 channel PCM, and the only connection we have, convenient one, to do that digitally, because again, we don't want to use the 7.1 analog inputs on his AV receiver because that bypasses Odyssey and base management,
right.
and he wants to see what is Odyssey doing to my frequency response. So obviously bypassing it, not what you want to do. So it has to be a digital signal. It has to be PCM. It has to be addressable to each speaker one at a time.
Yeah.
So thankfully, Rumi Q Wizard can do this. We'll obviously have a link at avrant.com for this article that was posted by Mini DSP. Now, of course, they mentioned their own microphone, the UMic 1. That's the first like 2 steps in this tutorial. You do not have to use specifically the UMic 1. You can do this with any microphone, so that's okay. You can know that. But the rest of the tutorial is so handy because it takes you step by step exactly how to set this up. They show you where to get a ASIO driver for basically any setup, and that will let you bypass everything that Windows might be doing to the sound and just send the sounds directly to the HDMI output. So you do have to have an HDMI output, but as long as you do, you can do 7.1 test tones with Rumi Q Wizard, which is free software. So we'll post that
There
link.
you go.
I think that'll be handy.
It's a pretty inexpensive method of doing this. Now,
Mm-hmm.
Jeb over on Facebook. Anybody named Jeb? I assume your last name is Bush. Said our just.
It does start with a B. It's not Bush.
I am just assuming you're all related to the Bushes in some way. Said our discussion of inexpensive soundproofing ideas a couple of weeks ago reminded him of a story from his college days. He was a member of a band that practiced in an apartment. They had an understanding with the downstairs neighbors who would just bang on their ceiling if they wanted Jeb's band to stop. They tried putting up a whole bunch of egg carton style diffusers that a local building was throwing out. It made their practice room sound strange. But the downstairs neighbor had also furiously banged on the ceiling within about 30 seconds. Apparently, the new quote unquote soundproofing caused so much shaking that it knocked a light loose in the apartment below. That day, Jeb learned that acoustics are weird. Um, yeah, that whole
Yeah, no,
Carton thing is such a myth. It is
I
so
mean, for
bad, and I see it in movies all the time too.
yeah,
And you're like, listen, just because it's the shape of those foam things that they use in uh, actual studios, they used to use in actual studios, because it's that same shape, does not mean it has the same acoustical properties. Because that's,
no.
I think that's where it comes from. But people are weird, dude.
If
People,
if these were like some kind of stiff material, I am betting. I don't know how Jeb and his band affixed these egg
Mhm.
carton style thingies to the wall, but I'm seeing two possibilities here. Because I mean, literally just having egg carton shaped things in your room should not have caused the downstairs to shake that much more violently, like just literally from the airborne sound waves traveling in some new way. But however they affixed it to the wall, either those egg cartons started rattling against the wall themselves, which is entirely possible, because
Oh, they certainly did that.
I'm betting they didn't cover the entire wall in like elastomer and then
Yeah.
paste these things onto it. So there's that, or they might have used some kind of like hard fit, like nails. They
Yeah,
might have literally nailed them into the wall.
that's what I think they did. I think they nailed them
Yeah,
to the wall, and the nails,
or stapled them or something.
yeah, coupled them directly, and now it's
Yeah,
shaking the wall that much
that's
more.
right. And you also just put like a gazillion holes into your wall. I'm betting that's more what I bet they stapled them with a regular hand stapler there
Yeah.
onto the walls, and now you just put a gazillion holes in your drywall, and these things are all rattling against it now.
Yeah.
Anyway, this was years ago, but yeah,
So
that is not soundproofing.
no, it's not. No, it's not. All right. This week or last week or some week, I reposted a picture that Audioholics had posted of this wall o speakers. I think my comment was subs, because
Yeah.
it's what it looked like, a wall of subs with some horrible tweeters on top. I think the subs are actually in the center, but it's
Yeah, those are just like drivers.
just a ridiculous number of drivers. Fred C wanted to know if it's actually a fake wall. These are some of the comments. A
Yeah.
fake wall made to look like an insane number of speakers. I don't think that's the case.
No.
Efren just plain wanted to know what the heck it was. And he actually identified it as JBL Cinema 46 675A dual 15-inch monitors with a 2360A horn tweeters stacked on top of them. Even though he identified the speakers, he still thinks the setup is silly. He's just using clusters that could act as line arrays for 5 front channels. Each driver would barely have to move, making it very efficient and low in distortion. Plus, it would have the capability to make even a weak or an old soundtrack tactile and larger than life. Lee Overstreet said he just liked the picture of Rob's new media room.
Yeah, I am not that crazy. I couldn't see any benefit of doing this. I mean, the crazy sound wave interaction that you're going to have out of this.
Clearly for a concert, right? I mean, what else could this be for?
There's a screen there. You know, there's a screen behind all of these things.
I don't know. Nelson and Don also commented as well. I don't know what they said. But
yeah, you can head over to Facebook there to read everybody's
it's
comments.
Just this huge wall of speakers, and I mean, there's horns everywhere. It's just crazy. It's gotta be either that, or I mean, because you look at behind it, how industrial it looks back there.
Yes,
I'm thinking it's this is like a reseller, and he's just got them stacked up there just to be impressive.
Maybe like it was just a warehouse. I mean, I just love that there is a center channel, but it's just one of these dual 15s hanging above everything all by itself.
Yeah. It's just going to be up here. Don't worry about me. Is the dialogue intelligible? What? What? I can't hear. I threw up a little bit. It's very loud in here
now. Yes. Anyway, it is entertaining, and it's nice to know that there are people even crazier than myself, because 11 speakers in a tiny room still isn't as crazy as this thing, because at least mine sounds good.
You're really setting the bar high there, Rob. You're like, this is how crazy I am, and this guy right here, who's clearly insane, is great. Okay. Jay, had a question for you, Rob.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. La-di-da. Look at
Aren't I special?
I might just skip this one. No. Jay saw the 11 speaker layout shown as part of the DTS-X announcement and thought it closely resembled what Rob said he already has in place in his theater.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to describe what was shown, I mean, because the people who actually went to the DTS-X demonstration in Calabasas, in California, at DTS's headquarters, there were 2 setups, sort of like 3. There were 2 rooms, one of which had 2 setups in it.
Yeah, one had an inner ring and an outer ring.
Yeah. And I mean, that had like a crazy number of speakers in it. And they were just all over the place to basically demonstrate that you can put speakers almost anywhere. One was to simulate a cinema setup, one was to simulate a home. But the more, let's call it reasonable setup was in a second room, smaller room with self-powered focal monitors in an 11 speaker setup where they had 7.1 or 7.2, I guess, with 2 subwoofers, but 7.2 and then 4 speakers overhead. Or actually, it looked like 5 because it looked like they had a center height as well. But that was sort of the setup. But I think the one Jay was actually referring to was a diagram that they posted, which was actually showing what DTS Headphone X is attempting to simulate. And one of the, I guess I'll call it kind of cool things that DTS-X might be able to do is one soundtrack that can be played in the cinema or at home or over headphones using a DTS Headphone X decoder. And you're still using this object-based audio. So DTS Headphone X tries to simulate 7.1 again, and then 4 overheads, front heights, rear heights. Very similar to what Yamaha used to have with their Presence speaker setup. Front heights, rear heights. So that's what it was. In my theater, I've got 9 speakers on the ground level because I'm using front wides, and then I have front heights. I have no rear heights, so I'm missing those.
Aw. More Sierra 2s. That's all we need.
Yep. That's
all right. Also, Jay wants to know, is Rob licking his chops after seeing the announcement? And did Rob already sell his Denon AVR X5200? The traitor purchase behind my back.
Yep.
So that he can get an AVR with DTS-X decoder and the DTS Neural X up mixer. Well,
no, I'm not licking my chops. In fact, I mean, this is kind of a bad thing to say, but I'm almost hoping this is just like an outright failure, because I'm like, why are we doing this? Why are we having multiple ways of doing the same thing? Everybody's fighting behind the scenes. Who's going to dominate the cinema? Who's going to dominate broadcast? All this kind of stuff. It's like, let's just get a standard and be done with this silliness. I'm finding it frustrating, to be honest. I have not gotten rid of my X5200 for a few simple reasons. One, please show me the DTS-X title I can buy today to actually listen to, because doesn't exist yet. The one movie that has supposedly been mixed using DTS multi-dimensional audio for the theater, which is the upcoming Avengers: Age of Ultron. Now they use those tools to make the soundtrack. It's not being played back in DTS-X because guess what? There are no DTS-X theaters yet. It's being played back in Dolby Atmos. That's part of this open format that DTS has created, saying, hey, go ahead and make it using our free software that we don't make any money off of, and then apparently use somebody else's system to play it back. So
Right.
good on you there. DTS-X has been withdrawn from consideration for being the ATSC 3.0 television broadcast standard. They're not even in the running anymore. It's either going to be Dolby AC4, which is essentially Dolby Digital Plus with Atmos on top of it. That's more or less what it is. Or Technicolor and Fraunhofer, they're working together on this format they're calling MPEG-H. That thing is like so not ready. So I'm like, guess what's going to win? Because ATSC is deciding this summer what their audio standard is gonna be.
Why aren't they being considered?
They withdrew. And I think the reason why is because they keep saying how DTS-X is expanding upon DTS HD master audio,
Right.
which means it's using more bandwidth, right? And meanwhile, AC4, Dolby's AC4, which like I say is basically Dolby Digital Plus, that can use less bandwidth. It can be all the way down at 256 kilobits per second for 7.1 audio. Like it can be crunched right down as far as bandwidth. So when it comes broadcast time, they're like, yeah, we want as little data as possible, not more data.
Right.
So, I mean, it looks like Dolby is almost kind of running away with this thing. Which I would be fine with. I'd be fine with there being one standard for immersive audio.
This is the stupidest one so far, though.
Not really, though. I mean, it works. Stupid. I also think how many people besides me are actually going to put 4 speakers above them, either on their series?
That's why I was so excited about DTS-X, because they didn't care as much where your speakers were.
But you still need speakers physically overhead. Like they said, DTS-X, they made it clear it is not virtualizing height channels. Like if you have 5 speakers at ear level, it's not virtualizing sounds overhead.
Yeah.
So if you want that overhead effect, you still need physical speakers above you. And whether DTS-X will work with the Atmos upward firing speakers, they're like, well, you can play it through there. We just don't know if it's going to sound the way it's supposed to sound because they don't have the correction curve, the head-related transfer curve that is patented somehow by Dolby. So I mean, like, Dolby thought this through. They're like, look, very few people are going to install 4 physical speakers somewhere above them, but lots of people are still going to have 5.1. And if we have regular 5.1, but 4 of those speakers fire upward to simulate the upward sound, that's one way we can do this without people having to physically install speakers. I'm like, they've thought this through. I'm kind of hoping they just kick butt and win so that we don't have to deal with all this.
I don't know if the ATSC or whatever the standard is that big of a deal. I don't know that that's going to be sort of deal breaker. Well,
it's just the fact that if that becomes the standard, and it sure looks like it's going to, all television shows that want to use immersive audio are going to be using Atmos. So at that point, it's like, well, all those TV shows, if they're then released in streaming, I mean, streaming again is another one. If AC4 becomes the dominant format in streaming, I don't really care what Ultra HD Blu-ray does because most people are going to be streaming Ultra HD content or downloading it from an internet service. And if AC4 becomes the standard there, then again, everybody's mixing in Atmos by default. So if the only thing that's using DTS-X is Ultra HD Blu-ray, like, why are we even bothering? Just make it in Atmos. You've already done it in Atmos for every other format.
We shall see. We shall see if that's how this thing shakes out. We have seen stranger things happen than Dolby get their butts kicked. All right.
This is AV Rant, and I just ranted. Thank you.
You ranted. Look at you. You could thank God you pointed it out because Canadian rants are sometimes hard to identify. Wow.
Ah, dear.
It's like I'm angry, but I'm being very nice about it. All right, Joel was intrigued by Rob's suggestion regarding audio output from an HGPC and telling Windows to output 7.1 PCM, even if you're only using 5.1 speakers. He asks, does this apply to the output settings for an Xbox One or a PS4 as well? Well, I can tell you from personal, Xbox One seems that you, no matter what you do, you're getting 7.1 output, no matter what. Like I can't make it not do that. Like I keep going to the audio settings, seeing if I can fix it so it won't do it anymore, but it just does it. And it's
Ah,
very irritating because if I've got a stereo source, I can't use the DTSX or DTS whatever it is, Neo X, to
mhm.
change it into surround sound if I want to. I just get stereo no matter what, which is sort of irritating. But
Hmm.
I
Oh, because it's actually sending out a 7.1
it
signal.
is. It's sending out 7.1 no matter if you put Bitstream too, it sends out 7 channels. So it's very odd.
Huh.
So I've changed it a
Yeah.
couple of times and it's just not been really working for me. So but the PS4 I don't have any experience with. So
Yeah, it remains a little bit tricky when it comes to the video game systems as well, because you're not only setting the output for video playback, this is actually even more so setting the audio output for game playback.
and that's where
And
you don't want to mess things up because you
yeah,
need to have that discrete audio, especially if you're working with like a first person shooter and there's somebody shooting. If it just sounds like it's coming from one side, you keep spinning around. But if it's surround sound, you can tell that somebody is shooting from behind you to the left or the right.
yeah, exactly. I mean, the thing is, if you set it to 7.1 PCM output, at the very least, you know all the audio that can possibly be output, whether it's video or video game, is being sent out of the console itself. And now it's up to your AV receiver to decide how it's going to handle that. So, I mean, it's safe in that sense. But on the other side, this is not a home theater PC with Windows. I mean, the reason I recommended that with Windows is because when Windows tries to do channel management or base management or things like that, it just messes things up. It just does. So it's much safer. Whereas these are consumer electronic devices. In the case of the PlayStation 4, there's actually separate settings for the regular audio output, which is applying to the menus and games, and the Blu-ray player output
I
or
want that.
disc player output. Yeah, it's annoying because on the PS4 you can only access those disc audio output options by inserting a disc, bringing up the player, and hitting options, and then
Yeah.
scrolling over to the settings inside of the player. And then that's where you can choose to, like, if you want to say output the bit stream of Dolby True HD or DTS HD master audio, that's the only place you can do it, is inside the player while a disc is playing. So it's frustrating on the PS4, but nevertheless, at least you can do it and it can be separate for game and video, and then you can have basically what you want by going through those settings. Yeah, so ultimately not as important to set it to 7.1 uncompressed PCM output on the video game systems, but if you do, you're still safe. So that's kind of where
Yeah.
that one
I'm hoping
falls.
that somebody's going to email me and say, "You're an idiot, Tom. You do this and this, and Xbox One will do this and this," and I'll be like, "Yay!" Because the output settings on this thing are so minuscule. Like you go in there and you're
Yeah.
like, "This is the whole menu." There's
Yep.
like 3 options here. Are you kidding me? You're thinking that this is all the control I want to have over my audio? I mean, because you are dead wrong. I mean, I want to have more control over my video than this, and I really don't care that much about the video other than that it comes out the way it's supposed to. Whereas
Yeah.
the audio, I want to have very minute. I want to be able to change
Mm,
Blu-ray versus this versus Netflix. I would like to be able to control Netflix separately, please. Thank you very much.
hmm.
Thank you. All right.
Yeah.
See, that was you could. I didn't have to tell anybody that was a rant. They, that's an American
They
thing.
knew.
They just knew. It's a tone of voice thing. All right, John, thanked us for discussing speaker wire length and RCA versus XLR connections. At some point, I guess we did that. He asks whether front speakers are supposed to be placed away from the walls, and if so, is there a standard distance? Yes, generally they are. It's the if I were to say, if you're saying how far away, I would say at least a couple of feet, usually two
Yeah.
to 3 feet. That
Yeah.
would be my standard distance. Is that a standard? Well, first of all, a lot of speakers are different. So some designs might be rear ported. They might be bipolar, meaning that that the sound comes out the front and the back at the exact
Hmm.
same. Uh, and if that's the case, then you're going to have completely different needs. They might have to be a lot further away, or maybe even closer. Maybe some speakers are designed with that boundary reinforcement in mind, and they
Hmm.
want you to place it close to the wall. But my rule of thumb is 2 or 3 feet from the side wall and 2 or 3 feet from the back wall.
Yes, and one recommendation that's commonly used is try not to have the distance from the side wall and the back wall be identical. This is really all about base reinforcement because once again, when we're talking about low frequencies and base sort of starts up around 500 hertz. It doesn't have to be all the way down at 50
Right.
or 25 hertz. You know, what we think of in terms of when we hear a note and describe it as either being bass or mid range, it's really around 500 hertz that sort of starts. Certainly at 250 hertz, an octave below that is definitely what we would call bass. So those frequencies, as they get lower and lower, they become more and more omnidirectional. The sound is being pushed out the front of the speaker at first, if this is a traditional front firing speaker. But as soon as that pulls back in, the air wraps right around the cabinet of the speaker and goes out the back and then bounces off the wall and it bounces off the side and it travels in more of a spherical shape. So when you have that, you get this reinforcement because those sound waves are bouncing off the wall and then compounding the speaker or sort of the sound waves that are still moving in the forward direction. So the farther away you get the speaker from the wall, the less you're having that reinforcement from the reflections happening off the wall. As long as you base manage and you use subwoofers instead of trying to run your speakers full range, you lessen that to a degree. But we're again talking all the way up to 250 or even 500 hertz. 500 hertz is about 2 feet long. So that's why we sort of say if you can get your speaker about 2 feet away from any given wall, then at least you're not getting reinforcement from frequencies higher than 500 hertz, which we would start to call mid range. So it's not a strict standard by any means, but that's sort of the rule of thumb.
Yeah, and I find that in most rooms, you tell people to get it off the wall, and they're usually moving it based on where they can and what the furniture and stuff is
Absolutely.
around. And if usually just within those confines, you're not equal between the back and the side to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times the problem is just getting it off the back wall. You're already
Yeah.
far enough off the side. You're trying to cheat it forward a little bit. Like every time your wife leaves the room, you just want to move it forward about an inch and a half. You know, until she goes, I don't remember the speakers being right there. And you're like, really? No, yeah, they've always been there. Yeah,
Yeah, and I mean, and none of this is going to be to the expense of having a proper distance between your left and right speaker.
right,
Like, if
right,
your room is 10 feet wide, you're not going to have them 3 feet away from each side wall and then only 4 feet away from each other.
right.
That
That
makes
wouldn't be bad.
absolutely no sense.
Yeah. Plus, where they'd be in front of your TV, hopefully, or your
Yeah.
screen, hopefully, at that point.
So, I mean, all you're going to find is that if you have your speakers closer to the wall than a couple of feet, you're going to find that frequencies about 500 hertz and up might be reinforced a little bit more than I would be if you were getting perfectly linear response. Voila, we have something like Odyssey or YPOW or MCACC or any of these that can correct that because
Right.
you're having some boundary reinforcement. You use a little bit of equalization and you're back down to linear. So it's not the end of the world if you have your speakers closer to the wall. You just will probably need to correct them a little bit with some EQ. That's all. No big deal.
His last question was he also wants to know why LCR speakers, which LCR, for those of you that aren't familiar with them, it's not a brand. It might be a brand. It's not a brand that I know of. But LCR is left, center, right. It means that it's a speaker that can be used as a left channel, a right channel, or a center channel. It's designed with all three placements in mind. He wants to know why these aren't more popular choices and options as in three literally identical speakers across the front. Therefore, they're going to be tamper matched. Wouldn't that be the best to have that? Well, there are. First of all, it's mostly has to do with the fact that people don't want to have the same type of speaker in the center that they do on the sides because they can't put it anywhere. There's no place to put another tower speaker in the middle of your room.
Mm-hmm.
If you're running towers, or a lot of times there's no place to put a bookshelf either.
Standing up vertically.
Yes. So they're like, okay, well, can I just lay it on its side? You're like, yep. And now it sounds different. But you can. There's some like Rob speakers you can turn the tweeter in it, I think.
Yep. They can be rotated.
And you put it down, and they may even do something with the crossover when they do that. I don't know. But there are speakers that are designed that way, and some people use them, but then they look weird, right? If you don't run them with the covers on them, then when you lie them on the side, suddenly you've got like a tweeter and a driver on one side of it. You're like, what side do I put the driver on? You're like, I don't know, whatever side you want. just pick a side.
Yes.
You're like, but
Doesn't
I
really
want
matter.
I want symmetry here. This doesn't look right.
Yeah.
You're like, well, you wanted three identical speakers, and you can't have it standing up, and now you have it lying. So that's why they came up with the center channel to begin with.
Yep.
They came up with it because they needed something that could be wide and thin and fit under inside of an entertainment center or on top of a shelf or something like that.
Yeah.
So
When it started, I mean, when 5.1 started, or even 3.0 for that matter, it was three identical speakers. And if it was bookshelf speakers, the center one was vertical. But people just didn't like the look, or they didn't have room beneath their TV. And I mean, this started when we were still using CRT televisions.
right.
So they're like, where do I put this center speaker? It's supposed to go directly in front of the TV that I'm looking at. Obviously, that's not an option. So it has to go above it or below it. And if it's standing up vertical, it just either looks weird or physically doesn't fit. So they turned things on the side to begin with. They're like, all right, we'll lay it down flat. But then that did what we don't want, which is it changed the timbre. So even though the three speakers were identical, they didn't sound identical anymore because you changed one of them. So a lot of the reason why we have dedicated center speakers now is because you can actually make a speaker that timbre matches the front, left, and right, even though it's horizontal, if you design it properly.
Right.
If you use a tweeter above a small mid-range driver flanked by a couple of woofers and you tune the crossover correctly, you can make that design, which obviously doesn't look like your front, left, and right, but you can make it sound identical. Your other option is actually to use three center speakers. Make your left and right horizontal instead of making them vertical. A lot of people think that looks weird, but it works. You get perfect timbre matching. You have three center speakers now.
It does look weird though. It looks really weird. It looks like something's not right here. And it really comes right down to sales too, John. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
People didn't like it, and the first person that came out with a long, thin center channel sold a billion of them, and everybody went, "Well, let's do that. That's a good idea. That got me a lot of money. Let's do that." So, yeah, that's kind of what it comes down to. So. All right, Alexandra. I don't know. Just wanted to share a YouTube video of a space shuttle launch that he found when his 2-year-old son told him he wanted to see a rocket ship take off. Alexander was so impressed with the audio that he thought all the AV Rant listeners would enjoy it. Again, I just listened to it just now with this M audio thing. It's all screwed up. So I could hear that something was happening, and I could hear the people talking, but there was no bass.
Okay. No, there's definitely bass in there. There's a heck of a lot of distortion in there too, and clipping. Because I mean, this is a literal space shuttle launch that was recorded with regular microphones, and it was so loud that it exceeded the dynamic range of the microphones. That was clear. So, yeah, I mean, it's certainly impressive in just how amazingly loud it is. If you play this back at reference volume, it's potentially going to break something in your room, if not your system. So yeah, there is that. But yeah, there's distortion in there.
Yeah, remember, you do not want to reproduce clipping.
Yeah.
I mean, I think for obvious reasons, but it's not really good to have your speakers reproduce something that is potentially damaging. So yeah, you can listen to this. I would not suggest doing it reference volume.
No, I have it a few notches below that for sure.
I would work my way up until where it started to sound bad to you, and then go back down a little bit. All right, Tom on Facebook asked when we will see drone mounted speakers that will allow for ideal placement for any layout, or even allow the speakers themselves to move in order to create immersive audio rather than steering the sound through stationary speakers. Yeah, he and I had I think we were having a conversation kind of about this on
Tom and Tom.
Tom and Tom. That's right. I was talking to myself on Facebook like a loser. No, I was talking to a totally different Tom, I swear. And I think his idea was sort of like, like the sound would move to where the where it was supposed to be coming from at any given time. Which
I think he started with the idea of Atmos tells you where your speakers are supposed to be, Oro tells you where your speakers are supposed to be, and they're different. DTS says, okay, you can kind of put them wherever you want and will adapt, but the AV receiver still has to somehow know where they are. So he's like, well, if you have them mounted on positional drones instead of actually physically mounting them to your wall or your ceiling, then they can adapt to whatever format you're listening to. And then that changed to, well, instead of that, why don't we just have when the audio object moves in the mix, the speaker itself moves around the room instead of steering it.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is first of all, we need some sort of silent system.
Yes, drones right now are not silent.
Not so much with the silent, more with the high pitched whine. I think it would be the best way to describe it. Uh, Everything has to be battery powered now.
Mm.
All of that, and then you have to worry about some hacker hacking into your house and attacking you with your own speakers, which would be bad. No,
Yeah,
I like the idea. I do. I
yeah.
like the idea. I think that'd be great if they could just, just like the receiver would say, okay, these are the coordinates, man. You set up over here, you set up over there, and then this will make a nice place way to pin it across. And oh, the Xbox, whatever that eye thing was up there. That's what he's sitting on this side. So let's move. Everybody take 2 feet to the left or something like that. It'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly every time we see something about a near future, setting in a sci-fi movie or something like that, we're certainly expecting drone-mounted cameras to happen. For any news broadcasts or even just surveillance, whatever it is. We're definitely expecting that to happen. So maybe one day, or we could take a page out of Google's book and just have them on balloons. Just balloon-mounted speakers.
So speaking of drones, I watched that Atari. The Atari, they dug up the Atari.
The ET
thing.
cartridges.
Yeah, that was on Netflix. I think it's a Netflix exclusive. Anyways, I don't know if it's exclusive or not. Anyways, I watched that, and at some point towards the beginning, where they're going, they're like filming like the road up to the dump site.
Mm-hmm.
You could see the shadow of the drone that they used to do this.
Yes.
There we go. We got it was jarring to me, not because I could see, because I've seen helicopter shadows as they're doing filming and stuff like that. It happens. But the fact that it was a drone, I was like, yeah, look at that. We're doing it. We're doing that.
Costs less than a helicopter, that's for sure. So.
That's for sure. That's right. I thought they just put on a truck and go, but this is nice. That's nice, steady, a lot steadier and stuff. So
GoPro and a little drone, and away you go. So
there you go. There you go. All right, Chris has a Denon he has a Denon AVR 3312 that died and it was out of warranty. Ooh.
Yes, this is beginning our run of products that died on people this week.
Okay, sorry to hear that, dude.
Yeah.
As a result, he's looking for a new AV receiver. He's considering the AVR 4100 or the X5200. He would like us to explain the differences between those two models.
Sure. Yeah.
My notes here.
Sure. The X4100, the major difference here, the X4100 is limited to playing back a maximum of 9 speakers. It has 7 amplifiers built into it, so it can itself power 7 speakers, but you can add a 2-channel external amplifier and power as many as 9. The X5200 has 9 amplifiers built into it. It can run 9 speakers by itself, and then you can add a 2-channel amp to that one and drive as many as 11 speakers. So that's your major difference. One's limited to 9, one's limited to 11. One can drive 7 itself, the other can drive 9 itself. Almost all the other features are the same.
Yeah, there's a little bit more power. Nothing really. That is the main difference. So the question I have for you, of course, is how many speakers do you think you need?
Mm-hmm.
Because if that's the main difference, then that's what you're really, really paying for. Because neither one of these is going to be upgraded to DTS-X,
and neither one is going to be updated to HDCP 2.2 copy protection on any of the HDMI connections either.
I would go cheap or go home is what I would do.
Unless you want to run 11 speakers, obviously.
Well, right. Or if you're really into Atmos, I mean, you could if you're not interested in Atmos and you're not going to run more than 7 channels, there's plenty of older options that you could be getting that would save you money and allow you to do everything you need to do, and still save some money for later on when we tell you to buy a subwoofer or something.
Yeah, I mean, internally, there actually are differences. The X4100 is based on a platform that is manufactured in China for Denon, and it is shared by the Marantz SR7009. Even though the SR7009 has 9 amps and can drive 11 speakers, internally, it's actually based on the same platform as
Yeah.
the X4100. And the Marantz AV7702 preamplifier is based on that platform, too. The X5200 is based on a platform that is manufactured in Japan, and it's shared by the X7200 and the Marantz AV8802. Now, that's one of the reasons why some of us are still holding out the possible hope that the X5200 might get the same firmware upgrade as the X7200 and get DTS:X decoding, despite my rant. It's like, well, at least it would still be compatible, but no announcement on that front. It seems like maybe Marantz has come right out and said the SR7009 and the AV7702, they're not getting DTS:X. They've said that flat out in a customer service response to somebody who asked over on one of the forums, which means
Right.
the X4100 isn't getting it either because,
Yeah.
again, shares the platform. But yeah, can't say for sure about the X5200.
Yeah, it stinks that this thing really picked the absolute worst time to die on you, because you certainly
Yeah.
don't want
Yeah.
to. I would not buy. I certainly wouldn't buy something that had Atmos in it.
Hmm.
Is there anything that you can do to hold on for a couple of
I
months
know.
until this
I
HDMI
know.
2.0 thing? Because I really wouldn't buy anything that, if I could help it, until I could get full bandwidth HDMI 2.0 and HDCP 2.2.
Yeah, borrow
I'm
one
not.
from someone like me who has like 3 AV receivers sitting in boxes right now.
Yeah, and the reason is simply that you may never use Atmos, but invariably you're going to end up with Ultra HD. At some point, you're going to end up with either a TV or a player or something, and or hopefully both at some point. And if your receiver that you just bought uh, isn't going to pass through the signal, you're going to have to do all sorts of little workarounds. It's going to be a pain in the behind when it happens. And I just think that if there's any way you can hold off and save your money, either buy something cheap and just sort of deal with it for a couple of months or a year or so, or if you have another receiver lying around, or if this one's not totally dead but just sort of limping along and being
Mhm.
weird, or something like that, you know I don't know, dude. This is a terrible time to buy a receiver. Honestly, it's really a bad time to buy a
Yeah,
receiver.
because we're only like 6 months away from the new ones that will have everything. They'll
Yeah.
have HDCP 2.2, they'll have Atmos, and they'll have DTS:X, and they're like 6 months away.
Hey,
So yeah.
I can't stress this enough. When I bought my AVR X4000, the rep asked me, he's like, "Listen, hey, we're about to come out with these new ones with Dolby Atmos. Do you want them?" I was like, "No,
Mm,
no, I do not." I mean, this guy was offering me one, and I don't
yeah.
know what the price would have been. I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea what the price would have been. But I didn't even care to ask. I wouldn't have cared if he had told me it was the exact same price. I still would have said no, because there's no point. There was no point to me having this
Well, they
thing that
do have the wireless features that the X4000 doesn't have.
I
Might have
don't. I had
done this
I
one.
had already run the wire. I
Oh,
was
okay.
not interested in that. I'm sorry, I just wasn't. All right, Alan C. Thanked us for answering his long email last week. I remember it being long. I don't remember what it was about, but I'm sure I had lots of questions. He's taking on the task of moving an outlet and doing the drywall repairs himself. He says it has given him an appreciation for the professional drywall guys who make it all look seamless. Those guys are artisans. They are artisans. It is really crazy. Like, I know guys who are very, very handy, and when they do drywall, it looks good. But
Yep.
it takes them 2 or 3 days. Like, they'll do it, and then they'll come back the next day and sand it and
Hmm.
remud it, and then they come back the next day and sand it and remud it again, and they'll come back and sand it and then paint. They may skip one of those sanding muddies depending on how well they're going, but generally, the guys who are really good at it,
Hmm.
they just do it the once, and they're like, "It's done. It's good. It's perfect because I'm good at this." That is not something that you
That's
gotta
like
know.
professional bricklayers and stuff
Yeah,
too, right? Like if you
yeah.
went in and tried to lay bricks yourself, your own chimney or your own retaining wall or something like that, like good luck, man.
You will have a wall or a chimney. It may be sort of looking like a candle that's been left in the outside for a while, but or it may be more of a wave than a solid wall. But getting that mortar perfectly,
Mm,
an inch or whatever it is, that's not easy. Tile works the same way. Tile work, like a really good tile guy or gal is, they're worth their money. Now,
mhm,
he decided to go with the Para SVS PC 2000 cylinder subs after a discussion
mhm.
last week, and he has no plans for Atmos or DTSX. All right. He would
Cool.
like us to recommend where he should place his subwoofers. He sent us a diagram with 2 positions marked. He would like to know if these are good choices. He says that he has the freedom to move them around, but the narrow width of the room limits placement options. Do I have this open? I think I have this open, right? I
Yep.
do.
Now this is the one from last week where he was describing having something of a U-shaped room. What's happened is he's got his stairwell that comes down into the basement. That leads into his main home theater room, which is long but narrow. So it's, what is it, 29 feet long, but only 11 and a half feet wide.
Right.
And then at the front right corner of that long, narrow room, there's a walkway that goes over to a second room, which is on the other side of the stairwell that kind of mirrors the one that he has himself for the theater there. So looking at the diagram that he sent us, it's almost more like a G shape than a U. Like it
Yeah,
kind
it's
of,
very odd.
yeah, like it kind of wraps around that stairwell is what
When you
he's
go
got.
into the basement, the stairwell is kind of in the center.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And on the left side, well, according to this, on one side of it the entire thing is the home theater, along with, well, on the one half of it there's so on the left side or whatever, half of it is the home theater, and there's like a seating area just behind the home theater. So
Yeah.
he's sort of sitting again in the middle of the room. Ugh.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Ugh. So
Like
buying 2
front
subs,
to
you're
back
just you're
wise.
just you're just heading off the potential issues that you're going to end up having. But it really looks like 90% of this it's almost a square, but big rectangle of an area with a staircase in the middle is really sort of open to itself. It's all
Yeah.
sort of open.
Yeah, it's basically like two L's that are put together into a rectangle with the staircase in the middle of them,
Yeah.
you
So
know?
as far as his base is concerned, it's all open.
Yeah.
All
It's all
gate.
one big room. Yeah.
All the way up to that top of that staircase, wherever that door is. So
Mm.
all of that is part of it. So where he's got his sub sort of placed right now, he's got the sub at the front left corner almost, and
Yep.
then in the back right corner of not the not the
Yeah,
home
it's
theater
it's
area, but on the back wall, which is way back in that seating area.
yeah, it's like diagonally opposite corners of his theater area, but not diagonally opposite corners of the entire space of his basement. Right.
Right.
So if he just took the theater area, he's done diagonally opposite corners. Clearly, he's been listening to us
Yes, he has.
as far as that. However, this is a situation where you have to think of the entire space, not just your theater area. So what Tom and I both looked at it, and both right away we thought the same thing was that sub that you've, in the diagram laid out in the front left corner of the room, just move it over to be behind your front right speaker, basically exactly opposite across the room from the sub that you have at the back of the room. That has essentially put both subs at the midpoint width-wise of the entire basement,
Right.
not your theater area, but the entire basement. And that's what you want to do. You want to treat the entire basement like one big space and have them at the front and the back midpoints of the entire space. And looks like you should be able to accomplish that without too much trouble,
Yeah,
to be
you might
honest.
even cheat him a little bit to the right, dude.
Yeah, a little bit.
I would go a little, maybe a foot or two to the right if you can. If you can't, that's fine. This is
Yep.
probably close enough. But you might treat him a little bit to the right because you're the dead center of those walls. Well, I think the back wall is slightly shorter than the front wall,
Right.
but
Yeah.
you know, you're.
But I
I think
mean,
if you just move that front sub behind the right speaker rather than being sort of in front of the left speaker,
mhm.
you're going to be much better off.
Yep. Because what's happening here is if you just look at just the one sub at the back of the room, there's space to its left, there's space to its right, and then, of course, the entire space in front of it being the majority of the basement. If you then took the subwoofer at the front of the room, if you put it again just straight across from the sub at the back of the room, you would have space to its left, space to its right, and then the area in front of it. So that's what you want. You want as symmetrical a placement as you can get, but considering the entire open volume of air. So I really think that's the way to go. It looks like it should be achievable.
And lastly, for this, or at least for this week, until next
Oh,
week,
really?
that's
This
what
is
it
a
says.
short podcast, man.
No, no. He says
Oh,
finally for this week. This is his last
yeah.
question for this
His
week.
questions.
Let's see
Yes.
what
Okay.
no, it's only been an hour and something.
I know, man. I thought you were wrapping it up.
Hour and 13 minutes. I'm like, out of here. I'm gonna go get drunk. Uh, that's actually a good idea. I might do that.
Yeah, now we know
All
time
right.
flies.
Sorry. I could really use a beer. I had my wife has not been around enough, and I've been spending too much time with my children, and I'm about ready to.
Ah.
All right. He would like to know if the Denon AVR X4000 will sound obviously better and different from its current Onkyo TX-SR605. He has no concern for the video capabilities or driving more than 7 speakers. His Onkyo has Odyssey 2 EQ, or as we like to call it, the crappiest version of Odyssey that's ever been made ever. And they only made it because Onkyo said, I believe this. I don't know if this is true. I believe they only made it because Onkyo was like, "We need you to come up with a cheaper option because we can't pay for what
Or more
you're
like
offering."
one that will work on our extremely inexpensive processors that we
Yeah,
put in here that have no clock cycles on them at all.
I would venture to say yes, that it will sound obviously better, especially with the X4000 having the sub EQ. You'll be able to
Mm-hmm.
EQ those subs. You're gonna have much finer resolution. I think the 2 EQ is like, does it only do the main speakers? I don't even think it does the surrounds or something.
I mean, it's really more. I mean, it does EQ a little bit, but it's really just the auto setup of like, okay, we got the distances and the levels. That's mostly what 2EQ does. It does not apply any equalization to the subwoofer output at all. Which is really where you need EQ the most. So that is why we say it's almost a useless thing. And then it does apply, I think it's like a 1/6 octave or something like that resolution
Ooh.
filter to the speakers, which is doing more harm than good, to be honest.
Yeah,
That is far
basically.
too coarse.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, if you just turned off all of the Odyssey stuff altogether, would the X4000 sound radically different from the 605? Probably not.
No, I
I
wouldn't.
mean, I'm not saying they wouldn't sound different at all, but it wouldn't be like some gigantic revelation change in sound. But when Odyssey is applied, oh yeah, I think you're going to hear a difference there.
Yeah.
And given how pretty inexpensively you can get an X4000 now, $650 from
I thought we
accessories for
showed great
less.
restraint with our last question, not saying that he should buy an X4000, even though that was pretty much all I was thinking the whole time. But
When he's asking about the X4100,
yeah, like,
yeah,
why are
5200.
you buying that?
Maybe he wants Atmos. I mean, that
Maybe he
really is the
does,
reason.
and that's perfectly fine. I got no problems with that. Get it for cheap.
But not Alan. Alan
Mike,
doesn't want Atmos. So
if you, hey, I know a guy in Canada that's going to be selling the 5200 pretty soon, so
that could very well be the case.
yeah, you might want to think about making the boy a deal. Mike got a pair of Shure SC215 in-ear monitors after hearing us recommend them highly, us, Rob, and he loves them. He loved their strong bass. Loves their strong bass, linear mids and highs, and the fact that they stay put in his ears. His only quibble is they block out so much noise that they can't hear anything that's going on around him. That's not a quibble. That's a feature. That's why we get them when we have kids.
That's why
I
you
might
don't
get some of
need
those.
active noise canceling headphones if you use them too.
That's right. And then the other thing that's great about that is when your wife says, "I think we should start wearing hearing protection when we do yard work." I'm like, first of all, I already wear hearing protection. It's called in-ear headphones. Second of all, I don't really care what you do with your ears. My ears are are
Oh,
important to me. You do what you want.
I care about everyone's ears. If I had like limitless money, I'd just walk around with a pair of scissors. I've said this before, and like a whole pack of SE215s. And everybody I saw with the crappy earbuds, I'd be like, clip. And they'd be like, what? Why would you? And then I'd just hand them a pair of
So
SE215s. And there, I just
since you got
saved you.
infinite money, you better have some bodyguards along with you,
I
sir.
know.
Anyways, he wonders if there's an app that would let his smartphone microphone pick up sounds and mix them with his music so that he can listen without it being dangerous. And Rob identified a couple of places. There's some iOS apps and some Android apps that do exactly that. I reviewed now this isn't going to help him, but for those of you that are worried about stuff like that, some Audio Technica headphones that were like that were designed to kind of they had like this behind the head thing, and they were designed to be half in, half out of your ear. The idea being that it lets noise in so that when you're running or cycling or doing whatever.
Right.
I didn't particularly like them, but
Mm.
I gave them to a friend of mine who uses them all the time. She's a runner and she uses them constantly. She loves them.
Yep. Yeah, people who are the people who, which I really don't agree with this, but who wear headphones while they're cycling. Because good
See it
grief,
all the
should
time.
you not be wearing headphones while you're
I saw
cycling?
some
But people
dude
do.
just today with over ear headphones
Hmm.
rocking out on his bicycle.
Even skateboarding and that, it is dangerous when you cannot hear what's going on around you. But yeah, anyway, I think he said he has Android, but obviously lots of people do have iOS. So the one that seems to be most highly rated on iOS is called Awareness. I've actually got a couple of links that we'll post on avrant.com that list these, so you can see all the options. But yeah, that one is called Awareness. It goes for $6.99, which some people complain that's too expensive. But hey, if it does what you want, there's that. There's another one that's only $3 called Sound Boss. It apparently doesn't have as many features as Awareness, the app, but sort of gets the job done for a cheaper price. So those look like good options over there for iOS. And then over on the Android side, they don't have those particular apps. But the one that they seem to recommend the most is called Around Sound, which I believe is free. Being Android, since it would end up being free anyway. But yeah, Around Sound is the one that they mention most highly here. So there is an Around Sound Pro with more features for $2, but there you go. Those look like the options for what he was looking to do.
Yep.
Should work.
Yeah. I have sort of a this is my thought, right? I'm driving down the road with my music on in the car, and
Hmm.
it's quite loud usually. Uh, not just to drown out my children, but a lot of times it's just because I like the song or whatever. I'll turn it up a little bit, right? I usually can't hear what's going on around me, anyways.
Mm.
So it doesn't. Well, I agree with you in theory that having in-ear headphones, especially ones that drown out like all the stuff that's going on around you, can be dangerous. It's not necessarily dangerous. You should still be able to be aware with just your eyes of what's going on
Um,
around you.
I mean, the
It's
question
usually,
is,
though, more importantly, it's usually illegal.
right?
Most
Yeah.
places, it's illegal to have headphones on while you're operating a motor vehicle of any kind. Does not stop motorcyclists from doing it, who, by the
Hmm.
way, mostly can't hear anyways because of all
Hmm.
the exhaust sound. Because a lot of them aftermarket their pipes and have so much sound going on, they have tinnitus and everything else. So yeah, but
Yeah, I mean, one question is by mixing in external noises, are you just going to end up turning up the volume so that your music overpowers the external noises still? That's
well,
one thing that
theoretically,
might
the
happen.
external noises should just get louder too. I just find I just thought of that. I just rather take the headphones out personally.
There's
But
that.
or do what I do whenever I'm in my wife's car, which has a crappy radio, uh, and no CD player or anything. I just wear one, which is also
Nice.
illegal in Florida. But you know what? Whatever. You guys can.
I did want to
One
mention
ear is fine.
one. I did want to mention one last thing about these apps, which is read the descriptions because most of them it looks as though they're meant to work with earphones that have a mic, like a chat headset type of thing, and they actually use that microphone
Yeah,
to bring in the outside sounds
which
instead
makes
of the
sense.
actual mic that's built into the phone itself, which is probably in your pocket and therefore might not work that well anyway. So I will mention, specifically for the Shure SE215s, by themselves, they don't come with a microphone, but Shure does sell a different cable that you can attach. One of the nice features of Shure's in-ear monitors is that you can actually detach the cable right at the earphone itself, and then attach a different cable. So if you break your cable or if you want to swap it out with one that has a microphone and a control button, it's easy to do. So there's that.
How much are those headphones, by the way?
They're $100.
Yeah, I might look into those, dude. I
Mm-hmm.
probably have 100. I gotta go see how much mad money I have. We have a guilt. I when my wife just decided that I had to be involved with the budgeting.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I don't care. Just tell me how much money I have to spend, and if I don't have enough, then I won't buy it. I have self control. This is not an issue. She's like, no, you have to be. I'm like, well, how come there's not a line item that says guilt free? She goes, what is that? I'm like, that's money where I don't gotta ask you crap. I was gonna spend it. If I got $100 in there, maybe I'll get me some of those just for fun because I don't have enough headphones. All right, my wife will
Yeah, no
actually
kidding, right?
probably kill me if I spend my guilt-free money on headphones, but I'll just say, hey,
Get a review sample, man.
oh, I probably could, but whatever. In addition, this is Thomas who bought a bunch of stuff when we told him not to. In
Yes.
addition to his SVS SB2000, he also got a BenQ 1075 print projector and a 120-inch silver ticket screen. He loves them. I haven't clicked on this link.
Those are nice products, man.
Yes,
Like
he did well.
very cost effective but very good performance products. High value. I like those choices.
Yes. So, this is opening. Oh, yes, he also got a dog. Oh, he's got two dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it looks pretty good.
Those can be his acoustic treatments or his woofers. Yeah, the internet's over. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That was
All right.
worst joke ever.
He also got a pair of Philips Fidelio X2 headphones, which are about $300, and he
Uh-huh.
thinks they're a nice upgrade over the Audio Technica ATH M50s, which you can get for like 60 sometimes. They're
So they
about
better
a
be
pound
better. Yeah.
but I've seen them on sale for as low as 60. But those are I love those headphones. Those are the ones I lent to a friend. He won't give them back. Along with the headphones, he got a Turtle Beach DSS Dolby headphone processor that he highly recommends for gaming. And what that does is make the headphones sound as much like surround as possible.
Yeah, that actually uses the Dolby headphone technology. That's their own specific technology. I didn't look closely enough at this. I believe what it can do, because like I use the Astro gaming headsets for gaming, which I like because it allows you to use the microphone for chat in the same pair of headphones, so that it's all together in one unit and all works together quite nicely. But what those can do is you can actually send out 5.1 Dolby Digital from your gaming system via an optical cable into this. They call, in the case of Astro Gaming, they call it a mix amp. In Turtle Beach, they call it their DSS. But you can send out actual 5.1 Dolby Digital, and it will decode it and then use Dolby headphone to simulate surround sound inside of your headphones. So it is a nice unit. I certainly appreciate using my Astro Gaming version of it for playing games.
Yeah. He's got his speakers placed in really weird places, though. He's got like one like behind a lamp. So, and his screen is not centered on the wall, which I don't think is
Mm,
necessarily an issue, but it looks
no.
weird. So I would move that right speaker out some, or maybe on the stand like the other one is, so that it's not so weird. I think the reason he did that was because so that people who were sitting on that couch would still not have the right speaker in front of them. But I think those people sitting on that right couch are screwed anyway. So whatever. Anyways, okay, he got a turtle. Blah, 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 blah. He's still interested in the Oppo PM3 headphones, and he wants to know when Tom's review will be ready. Not this week. I really, really want to get this review done. In fact, now that I've got this other product, I think I'm going to have to spend some time this weekend getting it done. It's simply, I've just been too busy. I have not listened to any music at home that was not coming out of a portable speaker while I was cooking food in months now. Everything's either been in my car or headphones when I'm at work or out of my Forus speakers, PHORUS speakers, which I use constantly. In fact, I've been and they're not great
Despite them
speakers.
not being the best quality.
Yeah, that would sound great, but they are you can stream to them and they're very easy to deal with,
Right.
and you can take them from room to room and they can get pretty loud. And I can unplug one speaker and then take it into the bathroom and plug it in and go take a shower, and it'll eventually pop back on. It's very nice. Except now that my phone is so old, it sometimes won't connect to them. And I talk to the Forest people. They're like, it's not our fault. It's your stupid phone. I'm like, that's probably true. Anyways, so I swear, Thomas, I will really, really try to. This is Thomas, right? Really
Yes.
try to get that done this week so that next week we will be talking about it. So put it down on your calendar.
He's certainly going up the price chain in headphones.
He
Went from the
certainly
M50s,
is.
which are like below 100 to $300 Fidelio X2s from Philips, and these are what they're $700, right? The PM3s, are they?
PM3s, no, that's the twos. The three
Oh,
is the new one. I think these are only $400.
is that
I
right?
think,
Man, that's cheap.
I think so.
For planar magnetics, that's crazy.
Yeah, they're very small.
Yeah. I mean, can you give us any hint, like just overall?
Well, I think
Uh,
I mean, I use them all the time. If I'm sitting and I'm doing anything, these are my go-to, and they're
okay.
very comfortable.
Yeah,
And
four
that's
hundred dollars, man. $400 for the
yeah,
PM3s.
your
Man.
computer's faster than mine. No,
Yes, it is.
yeah, $400, but they're physically smaller. The driver is physically smaller,
Yeah, yeah.
and my quick AB when I first got them, I did a quick AB. There's certainly not as much bass.
Mm,
I did listen to some stuff that I was familiar with that had a lot of bass, and there was certainly not as much bass
mm.
as with the other ones. Uh, but I'm going to compare them to some comparably
Yeah.
priced
But the
headphones.
PM3s are sealed and the PM2s and the PM1s are open backed. Yeah.
That's right. That's going to be the
So
other
that's a
big difference.
big difference. Yeah.
So and these are actually if I were good, I'm supposed to be doing a review next week. Anyways, they are heavier than I feel like they should be. They're
Mm,
not heavy, but they're
right.
heavier than I feel like they should be. They
Mm,
feel heavier than the other headphones.
hmm.
They are technically over the ear, but I have small ears,
Right.
so they would work. They work for me. I don't know if Rob's elephantine ears would fit. Probably
Probably not. I'd have to squeeze in the pinna of my ear. I'd have to
yeah,
fudge it around in there.
probably. So they're physically smaller, and the clamping pressure is tight but not uncomfortable.
Mm,
And but they definitely they when they said sealed, they weren't messing around. They definitely wanted them to keep out outside noise.
right.
And if I don't have the headphones playing anything, and I just have the headphones on, I can hear my heartbeat.
Okay.
So
Well, there you go, Thomas. I mean, so it's, some little caveats, some things to consider. It's not just all pluses on the
yeah.
PM3s, right? So,
Now
play the notes.
the actual linearity and how I like how the way they sound,
Hmm.
that's gonna have to wait until I compare them to their big brothers
Sure.
and some of the other things around here. Now, he also added a Darby box. So that's the Darby processor thing
Yeah,
that
I think they call it the Darblet, right?
yeah,
Darby
Darblet,
Darblet
that's why. But
separate
so he didn't
box.
go the Oppo. He's got a standalone processor, but he did this specifically for gaming. He says that he would not have kept it for just movies and TV, but for gaming, and particularly on a 120-inch screen, it makes a nice improvement. I think he described it as like a high like turning on like higher definition graphics
Yeah, yeah, like in the settings on your PC where you can
and the
choose what
texture.
level of graphics you want, right?
Yeah,
It's like upping the graphics quality a bit. I mean, I'm really glad he mentioned that because I hadn't really thought about that
yeah.
using it for gaming. Because again, I'm always like, just give me one-to-one pixel mapping. I don't want to worry about it. But I'm like, no. I mean, obviously, everything in the game is not captured from a camera. It's not
Yeah.
real life, all being generated. So if you can make that look a little sharper and nicer, I'm okay with that because you're not
Yeah.
looking at artifacts that you'll pick up from, a camera-based source like a movie or TV.
Yeah. Now, lastly, he got a FIO.
FIO,
Is that
yeah,
what that
FIO.
is? F little I big O
Hmm.
little E18.
The little is not actually part of the title. It's just
I
a
know. I'm
lowercase
just
e.
telling you. So it's a big F little I big O space little E818. Okay. So it's FIO
Yes.
E18 portable headphones amp DAC. He says he thinks he hears a difference, but maybe it's a little cleaner and clearer. But you'd like to know if there is really any point to buying it. No. If he is hearing a difference, is it solely because of the amp, or could the act be doing anything? It's your brain. And if he decides to return the E18, are there any portable headphone amp slash DACs that we recommend for under $200? Maybe as much as $300. Man, this guy's got a money hole in his pocket. It's burning.
We're like,
It's on
don't buy
fire.
anything. He's like, oh, really? Don't buy anything? Yeah, look at me now.
And look at me now. How you like me now,
I got-
Buster, Mr. Don't Buy Stuff? I buy everything, and now I'm going to buy some more and ask you what to buy.
That's
Guess what
right.
I'm going to tell you to do? Don't buy stuff. Um, yeah, if you think you're hearing something, you're probably not. And that's just generally the case. Lower noise floor is what you could be,
Yeah.
is what I would be listening for.
And yeah,
Uh,
I have to say, I mean, I've recommended the FIO products in the past simply because they're inexpensive, like relative to some of these other insanely expensive external DACs and headphone amps that are out there. I mean, there are
how
multi-thousand
much is
dollar
it? About
headphone amps.
$100, right? By about
These are
100.
like, yeah, $100 to
Yeah.
$200 at the most, right? And certainly in the case of I connect my headphones directly to my laptop and it is Buzz City,
Yeah.
and therefore I connect this via USB to one of these FiO, DAC amps, and it is much better than just the straight headphone connection. Certainly worth it if that's the situation you were in. But I gotta say, these FiO ones, I went ahead and I had given to me as a Christmas gift, but an X5. That is their actual full player. You can use it as a DAC and a headphone amp, but it is also a full player that can play back, lossless or quote unquote high resolution audio files, 192 24-bit stuff, or DSD files directly if you're taking them straight off a super audio CD. It can do all that, but I have to say, it has a little bit of a noise floor. It has a higher noise floor than just playing directly out of the headphone jack of my iPhone.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the way it is. Now, can I say it certainly delivers more power its amplifier can deliver more power to less efficient headphones than my iPhone can. So there's your situation where it might be worth it, but it does have that little bit of a noise floor. The FiOS in general have a little bit of a noise floor. So you're not getting a silent noise floor, but it might be better than your laptop. But if you're saying I can barely hear any difference, then it
You
ain't
don't know
worth
the
it.
difference.
It ain't worth it.
I'm saying, yeah, frankly, you're just not hearing anything. If you're the differences you're hearing are because of volume differences when you're switching from one to the other,
That could
and
be
you
easily.
wanting to hear something, which is, dude, it's perfectly okay. This is a real phenomenon. This is not any sort of insult or anything. This is just fact, as far as I'm concerned. This is just what this is. I cannot believe that there's something else going on there. And if by spending more money, will you hear something more? I'm gonna say no. Honestly, if you think you're hearing something now barely, you're not gonna get any more not hearing stuff by spending
Yeah.
more money, unless it's just because you've spent more money and your brain's like, well, I must hear something. Um,
Well, because if you're reading any of the headphone amp forums, I
yeah,
mean, they're all over this stuff talking about, oh, how much the soundstage opened up and how much more detail it is and how much clearer and crisper and
and
the bass
compare
is so
that to
much
what the
better.
people in the cable forums are saying. And if it sounds exactly the same, it's because it's the same BS coming from practically the same people. It is BS,
Yeah,
and they do
none
say
of
it.
none of the headphones that he owns himself are particularly
Yeah,
difficult to drive. I mean,
yeah,
there are headphones that are hard to drive, and if you connect them straight to your smartphone, they'll either be really quiet or there will be bass missing or things
yeah,
like that. Like that is a real thing where an
yes.
external headphone amp can make a difference. The external DACs make a difference if you're, like I say, on your laptop, have a really noisy headphone output, which is certainly a common occurrence. So by all means, they have their place in the market. But yeah, just it's the same as saying, do the DACs from one AV receiver to another make all the difference in the world? No, they don't.
Yeah,
They
they don't.
just don't.
Well, I've got a Mac, and my Mac output is really, really clean. I've never really noticed much of a noise floor ever. It's very quiet, and the output is very, very good. I connect up external DACs all the time, and I've never thought, "Wow, there's a difference." I've always thought, "Wow, that was more steps than I had to do just to do the same thing." Because that's exactly what it comes down to. Like I have a,
Yeah.
Cambridge Audio DAC Magic XS, the small little box that has volume control, and that's it.
Hmm.
And I used to keep that right next to my laptop and used to use it all the time. And then one day I had to move something. I put it to the side, and I was like, now it's literally within arm's reach. I'm like, no, it's way over there. It's too much trouble. Um, Now, when I do test these headphones, I'm going to be using the Stealth DC1 or whatever it's
Okay.
called from Emotiva because
Yeah.
it's got two ports,
Right.
two
Two
headphone
headphone
ports.
outputs. Yeah.
So it'll make it easy to switch back and forth.
Hmm.
That's the only reason. And
And knowing
the
that,
people who will listen to the review or whatever, or who will read it if I decide to write it up, they'll say, "Oh, they'll want to know that I used a DAC, an external DAC,
right.
because they believe that if I don't use it, basically they'll use it as a way to criticize me
Well, and
if
it,
I
it
don't."
also lets you know that between the two different headphones,
Yeah,
the DAC and the amplifier were the same. They're identical because they're coming from the same unit. So you're removing variables in a situation like
yeah.
that, right?
But yeah, the only other thing about these particular headphones, which this is reminding me of the PC, the PM3s, is that what they are? Yeah,
Hmm.
PM3s, is that I have noticed on my phone that they're a little bit hard to drive.
Okay.
Definitely more so than I noticed that with the big ones. They
Mm.
still get plenty loud. That's not
Mhm.
the issue. But I just noticed that I had to turn it up quite a bit, like almost max out the volume. And I can max out the volume if I want to without them being too loud.
Hmm.
Probably technically too loud, but not actually too loud. And the uh, it drains the battery pretty quick too. But my
Ah,
battery's not
yes.
dead anyways.
Yeah, that's
So
often an indicator that it's using a lot more power because your battery life just goes way down. Yeah, so I mean, anyway, Thomas was looking for a suggestion, right, for something
yeah.
that he could buy two to three
We
hundred
can give
dollars
suggestions
at
even
the
if we
most.
don't think you should spend any money. So go on.
That's right. I'm gonna say head on over to Oppo. You were possibly gonna buy something from Oppo anyway. They have now a portable high resolution audio. It goes all the way up to the 384 32 bit. If you want to go that crazy, you can play anything through this thing as far as DAC capabilities go. So good on you there. But it's very nice, thin, leather wrapped unit, $300. Oh, not cheap. But it's, I mean, if what you're worried about is that somebody on a forum somewhere is going to criticize you for not having like the best DAC and portable headphone amp that you can get, this is like it. Oppo's done a really nice job on this thing. They're charging like less than half the price of what's similar. Like I've seen other portable headphone
Why
DAC
is it
amps.
wrapped in leather? What did I
Just
didn't know that this thing existed.
I know it's a new product from them, but here it is. You know, it's an ESS Saber DAC, right? One of their highest end ones. Like I say, it can do the whole 384, 32-bit thing if you wanted to. But I mean, Oppo, I've been really impressed with their stuff because they do the thing that matters the most to me in a headphone amp, which is give you a silent noise floor. That's like all I want.
Oh,
But with plenty of
it's
power.
got a little analog noise control. You can turn the
I
little
know.
knob.
I know.
That's so cute.
And it has two gain settings. So if you do have high impedance, low efficiency headphones at some point, you can alter the gain on this so that it will drive those to similarly loud levels as more efficient, lower impedance headphones. So
Does it
I
have a
like
separate
it.
power? I'm trying to get these images to load.
Oh, it's battery it's battery
Is it
power.
battery? Oh
It is a
no,
portable one.
so there's a battery. It's not
Yeah.
just powered by USB.
Nope. There's a lithium ion battery built into it, rechargeable. So, it's got all the features I would personally look for in a very high level headphone amp DAC. I still can't tell you it's honestly going to sound any different than powering your headphones straight out of your smartphone because you're using efficient headphones at the moment. You probably won't hear anything. But there it is. It's something to look at if you want to.
Huh.
Yep. Gonna have to get that for review, Tom.
I probably could, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't really want to.
It's a pretty new product.
I don't care. I don't care. Someone was just complaining they couldn't see me. I think I accidentally clicked on you so that
Right.
whatever I click, whatever I see, you can't see me because no, who wants to? How about that? How about that being the reason? All right. Is that it for him? Oh no, I have suggestions.
Oh, yes.
The Cambridge Audio DAC Magic would be similar to what you already have, but I've never noticed a noise floor on that one, and it's
Okay.
got its own individual volume control, which is kind of nice. And that's just USB powered, so you plug it into your
Right.
computer, and you don't have to plug in something else. I don't think the Emotiva one is within
But you
that
can't
three
call
hundred
it
dollar.
portable. Right.
Oh,
You
he
certainly
wanted
can't call it
portable?
portable.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the one I would recommend. I use it and I like it, and it's light and cute and
The Cambridge
well,
Audio one, you mean?
yeah, the
Is what?
Cambridge Audio
Yeah.
one. Yeah, it's really
Okay.
nice. Yeah. That's why I was wondering why you were recommending that headphone amplifier from Oppo because I knew it wasn't portable. I'm like, that's not portable. I guess technically you can carry in
Oh, their gigantic one, their HA1.
It's like
That
$1,200, isn't
is
it?
like, yeah, it's like $1,200, and that's certainly a desktop unit thing. And that thing is designed to drive like electrostatic
Yeah.
headphones if you want it to. It can deliver 5 watts. That thing is
Yeah, this is
insane.
hilarious because they don't make a headphone that needs any of these things.
Not even
And
close.
and they're like, I don't know, you people want to buy it? We'll build it. We'll
Yup.
build it. Sure.
We're
All
Oppo.
right.
We do this stuff.
Jose, how are we doing on time here? I'd really like to not
Doing all right.
spend forever. You don't judge very well the time that we are taking.
Hour and 45 we're in, it looks like. Doing just fine. Jose.
God, so how
Bad
many
news from
these
Jose.
people are we have with broken stuff? Jose had his
Yeah.
rhythmic FV15 HP stopped working.
And this is pretty darn new. It was only a few
That's I was
weeks
gonna
ago
say,
we
is that
got
one of the
it.
newer ones?
Yep.
He got in touch with Brian Ding, the owner of Rhythmic. Well, there you go.
Mhm.
Brian gave him his personal cell phone number and shipped him a new amplifier as soon as the weekend had passed. Of course, it breaks down on a Friday,
Yep.
right?
I know.
Of course, it does. When else is it going to break down? Right when you had your Lord of the Rings trilogy planned, viewing party planned, 6-hour marathon. Ooh, there's that thing you can do with Lord of the Rings. What's it called? Oh man,
What?
you make food. It's like you make food as you go through it. It's called
Oh,
something. Oh man,
you eat the food that they're eating since
I
they
don't know
eat all
it's
the
the food that
time.
they're eating, but you eat food that's based on like the different scenes. So you have a bunch of stuff. I can't remember the name of it.
You and
Somebody's
food,
gonna probably
man.
ping me with it in a second here. Somebody who's watching.
Fun stuff.
Where are we at? Oh yeah, here we go. Uh, cell phone number, weekends. He also offered instructions on how to replace the capacitors, which were identified as the problem component, if Jose wanted to get his subwoofer working together as soon as humanly possible. So if he was comfortable fixing capacitors or replacing them,
Hmm.
he could have done that. But so that even though Jose got a malfunctioning unit, he is pleased with the customer support, and as long as the new amp fixes his issues, he's fine with having had to limp along with his old subwoofer for a few days. Well, that's okay. That's good.
Yeah. So
The
I mean,
amp will
I'm
definitely
I'm
fix it.
really bummed to hear that he got a malfunctioning unit. I mean, I have to say this is not Rhythmic's MO. This is not the
Yeah.
normal occurrence for them. But that said, subwoofer amplifiers, for whatever reason, I mean, man, do a lot of companies have issues with their amplifiers. I mean,
It's because they
Axiom.
OEM them.
Yeah, but I mean, Axiom made their own and they had problems, right? And then Rhythmic, they've switched the amplifier models that they've used in their amps many times. Um, I mean, as much as some people on some forums like to, for some reason, uh, denigrate the Bash brand amplifiers, you got to say Bash brand amplifiers pretty darn reliable.
Yeah, they're pretty
HSU has
solid.
been using them forever. Everybody's been using them forever. So maybe they don't have like the absolute best measurements ever, but at least they make a reliable, inexpensive amp that seems to get the job done. But it's like, Epic subwoofers, they basically went out of business because their amplifiers kept breaking on them at too high a rate. Elemental Designs, lots of problems with amps. So it's like, this is a unfortunately very common thing for some
Elemental
reason. But
Designs had bigger problems than just their amps.
I have to say, as far as this goes, I mean, certainly this is better than, say, like Byron's experience with Sharp getting his television
Yeah.
replaced.
Yeah.
This is like,
The
owner gets
exact
on the
opposite
phone
of that.
over the weekend, ships him right away, apologizes, gives him his own personal cell phone number in case he needs help, actually swapping out one amp for the other. It's like, well, at least they are trying to make it right, right? So,
It's clearly an issue. It
yeah,
doesn't turn on. This is
yeah,
not debatable here. You can't say,
exactly.
"Well, did you try this? Did you try that? Are you sure you know what you're doing with this?" Yeah, it's not on. It's not working. It's not that
Yep.
hard to figure out. Uh,
I mean,
so
hey,
yeah,
even
good
even
for him.
SVS, right? We always recommend SVS, and we like that their amplifiers prevent the woofer from bottoming out or even going into crazy high distortion. It's nice having that protection on there. But even there, we had that story, right? That guy in Australia, he got like the first one ever apparently in Australia, but he had a busted amp. So it's like nobody is immune
No one's immune to
from this
this. Yeah,
possibly happening, but it really matters that they stand behind it and get it fixed as fast as is possible.
yeah,
And it sounds like Rhythmic's doing that here. So
good.
yeah, that's the
All
start.
right, this is probably gonna be the last one. I'm done.
Okay.
John is having a terrible run of bad luck. First, his cable box is showing a message on his front panel, which says "Display not compatible," HDCP error, which is the kind of stuff that will make you want to rip your hair out.
Yeah.
And yet, if he switches HDMI inputs, it works fine. Inputs on what? His
I believe takes the cable box connection from one input on the TV and puts it into another or
right.
something to that effect. I think. I'm not sure.
His cable box is connected to his AV receiver, which is then feeding his Samsung TV. Is there any way to fix this problem? Should he be concerned that he has a problem in his TV? This is generally, in my experience, and this may not be the case with you, this is generally an order of operations error.
Mm-hmm.
What this is that something is turning on too fast or before something. Like if you've got a remote that's turning on everything at the same time, like
Yep.
this used to happen to me all the time with my PlayStation 3 until
Mm-hmm.
they did something with an update and it fixed it. But it used to happen to me all the time. If I switched inputs on my receiver while I was playing a movie on the PS3, it would not reconnect and just give me static. It would just
Right.
keep flashing in static, and I would have to power down the
Mm-hmm.
projector, power down the receiver, turn on the receiver, then turn on the projector and pray. Usually, I had to turn off the PS3 and just start all over again.
Mm.
Um, it's a handshake issue that's
Yes.
happening because HDMI sucks.
Yeah, yeah. My old cable box that I have, it's certainly like, man, when you, even if you just switch, like let's say I'm doing that and then I switch to the other input on my TV where my game systems are connected, and then I switch back to the cable box, like it takes a while for it to like figure out what signal am I supposed to be sending again. Like it tries to negotiate and redetect all the signal. It's like, man, why is it like this? But unfortunately, that's just kind of the way it is.
Yeah.
Um, Often if you want to test, is this a problem on your TV? Try just connecting the box directly to the TV without the AV receiver in between in the signal chain, because that will tell you if that's the input on your TV or if it's because you have the AV receiver in between it and the TV in the signal chain, which is almost certainly what's going on here with the handshake issues.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing is if this is really bugging you and there's no way to get around it and you can't figure out what order you have to turn things on or how long you have to wait in between, if you can just send HDMI directly from the cable box to the TV, there's no reason you can't use an optical or a digital coax audio connection from the cable box to your receiver because there's no special lossless or 7.1 audio coming out of that cable box.
Yeah.
It's standard Dolby Digital 5.1, which an optical or a digital coax connection can most
Or
certainly
you could
handle.
use audio return channel from your cable box,
Uh,
from your TV back down to your receiver.
That probably won't be 5.1 though.
Yeah, that's true.
Probably not. Most TVs don't do it. Most TVs sample it down to 2 channel
Yeah,
only.
that's true.
So yeah,
I always forget that because I never do that.
I know
That
it's
with
a
I.
pain. I don't know why.
All right. Yeah, so that's sort of a weird problem, but not unheard of.
Yeah.
Next, his Denon AVR X4000 was sending a hum to his speakers and making a click with every movement of the volume dial. We talked about that a few weeks ago.
We talked about it in our hangout. It was not on the podcast. We talked
Oh,
with
we did
John
talk about. Okay, it
directly
was in the Hangout. Guess
in the
what?
hangout.
Since then, I've noticed that there's the clicks too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's clicks. It's really light. It's off in the background, but it's a you just a little click. It's not a real loud thing. Even when you have the volume up, it's really for me, it's very soft, but it's
Hmm.
noticeable.
Hmm.
But I think it's just what the receiver does. Anyways, he says that he contacted Denon and they said there's likely a grounding error inside his X4000 itself and to immediately disconnect everything and contact his retailer for an exchange.
Now that's got to be because of the hum.
The hum,
Right?
not
The
because of the
hum.
click.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
hum is definitely a ground. Well, not definitely. It
Right.
could be because of a ground loop with your cable box,
Yeah.
but I'm guessing you tested that and it wasn't that. Because if you unplug the cable to your cable box and the hum goes away, it's the
Yeah.
cable box.
Right.
It's the ground loop right there, and you can use a noise isolator to do that to get rid of it. But I'm
Yeah.
guessing you tried that, and that's why you had to exchange it. The retailer that he bought from was Accessories for Less, which we
Mm-hmm.
always recommend, and they are doing the exchange. They're not arguing with him, but John had to pay for shipping, and he's not happy about having to pay shipping for a broken item. I agree with you, John. I wouldn't be happy about that either.
Yeah. So I mean, this is a tricky one for us because I mean, first of all, if you're getting the item from Accessories for Less, it's not that you can't necessarily find the same low price from anywhere if you search long enough. But I mean, I still like recommending them because it's so easy to find really good prices and still have the manufacturer on board. Like, you know, when he contacted Denon, they didn't say, "Oh, you bought that from an unauthorized retailer. You're on your own. We're not covering that at all." They're
Yeah.
like, "No, you know, it's still under warranty. We'll get this fixed." But because I think he only had it for like a couple of weeks, right? They're like, "Oh, just, you know, do it with your retailer, get an exchange through them." Um, this is unfortunate. I don't know. I mean, Accessories for Less, they do respond to customer information queries and stuff like that. I don't know. I certainly can't say on their behalf that they'd offer any sort of discount on shipping or anything like that. This might just be their standard practice, which is they are making very little profit on the things they sell. They are not including shipping in the price, in the retail price. You know, they're not rolling that in there. They might simply be saying, for us to do this, the shipping has to be paid for by the customer, and that might just be their policy. Which,
Hey,
yeah,
I had somebody tell
not
me this
not
the other
great.
day. You know, they called me up at work and asked for something that no one had ever asked before, and I said,
Mm,
"Oh, I don't think we do that because I've never really." She goes, "Well, I'm going to ask because I'd like it, and if
right.
I'll never get it if I don't ask." I'm like,
Mm,
"Well, I guess that makes sense, but no."
yep.
And that's sort of what you can do here as well. Call them back, say, "Listen,
Yeah.
I don't think I should have to pay for this." You
Yeah,
know,
because it was a lemon, right?
it was a lemon. It's not my fault. I know it's not your fault either, but it's
Yeah.
certainly not my fault. And I don't
Yeah.
think I should be charged for that. And if they say that's just our policy, you could always go to Denon too and say,
Well,
listen,
that's what I was thinking because it
I
is
bought this
under
from
their
customer
warranty.
less. They want to charge me for shipping. I don't think it's fair that they're charging me for shipping on something that is not, is not my fault. Can you do anything?
Yeah. Yeah, because it is Denon's own warranty. They do have their warranty on anything that's sold from Accessories for Less. It's 1 year, but he's well within that.
He's well
So
with that, yeah.
yeah, yeah, before you just say, grumble, grumble, I'm mad I had to pay shipping, it's like, well, exhaust your options as far as who might be able to help you out. Because stranger
Yeah,
things have
and
happened than
yeah, I
that.
do feel for you, dude, because I mean we've had a lot of people buy from them, including me.
Hmm.
Not this last receiver, but the receiver before that, and I most people have not had any issues. There's always going to be, like we said
Yeah.
with the amp before, there's always going to be the possibility of a problem, and if that happens, it's unfortunate when it happens to you, especially since you're having other issues too. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I had this with Apple, It's just
yeah,
like they wanted me to pay return shipping. I'm like, you guys are Apple, and I've never returned anything you do before. I'm like, if you do not pay for the shipping for me to return this, I'm never buying anything from you again. And they're like, okay. They paid for
there you go.
it. So
Hey,
I
remember
was like,
Liz on this program too was complaining that AT&T wouldn't unlock her phone, and
that's right.
she got what's his name to email her or whatever and
Yeah.
unlock it, personally or something. You press the unlock button or whatever.
So yeah,
So
doesn't hurt to ask for sure.
yes, for sure. And if you haven't already sent it back, at least.
Yeah.
Uh, but he's also concerned about the possibility that his faulty X4000 might have damaged his speakers or subwoofer. Could these grounding issues have caused any damage while it was connected? He has his previous Yamaha AV receiver back in place, and he isn't hearing anything obvious. But his speakers and subwoofer are all new as well, so he isn't sure how they're supposed to sound. Should he be worried? Put your ear next to every single one of those drivers. If they are making a sound that doesn't sound screechy and horrible, or like fluttering like a torn something, uh, then you shouldn't be worried.
Yeah, no, I mean, as far as like, he mentioned last week he got the Ascend Acoustics CMT 340 front
Yes,
speakers
yes.
and the HTM 200 surrounds and surround backs, and he got a Rhythmic LV12R subwoofer, which he said in our hangout he mistakenly had the volume turned like all the way
Oh,
up,
is this the same
and
guy?
it
My
started to
God.
bottom out. He went
Yes, he
clank,
thought he broke a
clank,
sub as
clank.
well because
Yeah,
he was running some sweeps through it and just started running them before he remembered to check his volume. And he had been watching a movie the night before, and what he was putting through was, the gain on what he was using for the sweeps was already very high, and he had
yeah,
a near reference volume, and the
yeah,
sub started bottoming out.
yeah,
He was worried that he might have broken something there. I'm like, well, if it's still playing, you're okay. And
yeah,
this is
yeah.
sort of the same sort of answer here. If it's still playing and it doesn't sound wrong, and it's sort of the whole thing with the DAC. I think I might have made. I think I hear something. I think I might hear something. You don't. In this case, if you don't really hear anything, you don't have to worry about grounding issues
Yeah, like
or
a hum or a
hum.
click coming through your speakers, no. Because I mean,
Yeah,
you can have hums and clicks that are meant to be there in a recording or in a movie.
yeah,
And
exactly.
if that sound, like just getting the signal, which is a hum or a click, were enough to damage the speakers, then it wouldn't matter what was causing that. It
Yeah,
would damage the speaker. And of course it doesn't. So no, I certainly on your speakers, I am not the least bit worried at all that your speakers have any damage. Your subwoofer, the only reason it wouldn't be from the hum or the clicks, it would be from that bottoming out incident if anything happened. But I mean,
yeah.
it should be. It's not like he did it for a prolonged period of time. It started to do it and he very rapidly disconnected and turned down the volume because it was a scary experience. And yeah, so I really think you're okay on that front, Sean.
2 hours again.
It is, of course.
Rob, Rob, it's 2 hours again.
I know, but
All right, we're stopping.
we
Okay,
started
so
early, so
Tim
fine.
A, Caesar, D over on Facebook, Eliezer, and John, we are going to be talking about you next week. If you do not hear
Yes.
your name and you aren't Jonathan, Nikhil, or Jeff, whose names are not on this list yet because we just
Yeah,
had their questions today,
they just came in today. Yeah.
we'll be addressing you guys next week. Now,
Yeah, we did get some other emails. I think even while we were recording, so those people as well. You'll be on the list for
yeah,
next week. Do not panic yet.
do not panic yet.
Panic next week if you don't hear your name.
Yes. All right. You can contact us, Rob at AV Rant, Tom at AV Rant, avrant.com, facebook.com/AV Rant podcast, at First Reflect for Twitter, and Rob
Mhm.
and at AVRant_Tom for me. You can always come to the website and leave us a donation, which will probably help with my Shure 215 purchase, maybe. I don't know. You'd have to
That's where
tell
the
me that
money's
that's
going,
what
huh?
you'd want me to do with it, 'cause if not, I'm just gonna
Yep.
leave it to pay
Money's
for.
not going to replacing my X5200. It's going to Tom's Shure SE215s.
No, that's not going to happen. Yeah, no one's giving you money to buy more receivers. You have three in boxes. You have issues. I'm at least buying reasonably priced things. Now,
It is true.
thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you guys next week for AV Rant. I'm Tom Mantry.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.
After partying a few, guys. See you there.